Cooper on the golf course, Jody?
He will be.
Okay. Good morning and welcome to the Committee of the Whole, May the 6th, 2025. It is presently 8:35 and the chair calls this meeting to order. I would just like to welcome Mayor McKay joining us virtually today. Good morning. And then I'm going to hand it over to Councillor Butler to read the land acknowledgement.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. We would like to acknowledge Wolfville is situated in Mi'kma'ki, the ancestral and unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq, and as such ask that we conduct our business with the 7 sacred teachings in mind: truth, honesty, love, courage, respect, wisdom, and humility.
Thank you, Councillor Butler. And can I have a motion to approve the agenda as circulated? Thanks from Councillor Elliott and a seconder. Councillor Van Niekerk. All those in favor? Opposed? And that is carried. And we're moving on to is there anyone around the table that would like to declare a conflict of interest? They may do so now. Seeing none, we will move on. Can I have a motion to approve the Committee of the Whole minutes, April the 1st, 2025?
I will move that the minutes of April 1st, 2025 Committee of the Whole meeting be approved as circulated or amended.
Thank you. And can I have a seconder?
I can second that.
Councillor Palmer, thank you. Is anyone seeing any errors or omissions? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? And that is carried unanimously. Can I have a motion to approve the Committee of the Whole in-camera minutes, April the 1st, 2025? Councillor Elliott.
I would move that the minutes of the Committee of Whole meeting of April 25, 2025 be approved as circulated.
Thank you. And a seconder? Councillor Williams, thank you. Any errors or omissions? Okay, seeing none. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? And that is carried. Thank you. And now we are moving on to presentations. I would like to welcome Mike Landry and Peter Matart to the chambers, and I'll let you go at it. Thank you. Sorry, I would just like to say, I am sorry, I moved too fast. I would just like to say that you are residents in favor of Health and Wellness Sports Center. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Who we are advocates for the development of modern recreation facilities in Kings County. We are here to promote the establishment of a year-round recreation space that strengthens the community's health, vitality, economy, and social connections, which are so key to the well-being of our citizens. We're here to gather and community input regarding the design and services of regional recreation facilities. And we're here to collaborate with municipal governments, community organizations, and other stakeholders. As I said before, we are a membership of over 1,100 people, and that's growing each and every day. We chose to form ourselves into a society because we wanted to be a viable entity, a recognized entity as we move forward, and also in support of all the good work being done by municipal groups across the valley floor. In that 1,100 plus, we put out a survey and we have 400 responses, which, as you know, for a survey, to have that number of responses is pretty crucial. And even of that 400, a lot of those are from households that involve that 1,100 group. So the results of that survey are as follows. And the wonderful thing about data is when you can see data for a second time that emulates what was done previously. So we are the second group to go forward with this type of initiative over the number of years now. And the data that was gained previous to ourselves very much reflects what we're seeing in this data. This is the community telling us that this is where they see the strongest needs for this facility and for the aspects of this facility as we move forward. So it's good to have this kind of data to help drive the proposal and to help us support the various aspects of the proposal. One of the biggest questions with respect to any kind of feasibility study and project of this nature and size is the direct economic spin-offs and any kind of concern over where the funds are coming from. In many of the like facilities around the province, the facility will create approximately 75 to 100 construction jobs, good paying jobs, and about 20 permanent positions within the facility. Revenue streams based on comparable facilities and user fees, rentals, and programs should cover about 60 to 85% of the operational costs that day to day as we move forward once the facility is built and up and running. We're lucky here in the valley. We've got wonderful offerings across the valley to draw tourism in. This is one more diamond in our crown of things that we offer. The facility will attract regional sporting events and cultural events. Families staying in our hotels, eating at our restaurants, and shopping in our local businesses. Again, funds coming directly to the valley, staying in the valley. Commercial development properties near recreation hubs have demonstrated lower vacancy rates and higher lease values, further enhancing our commercial tax revenue. Again, that revenue stream is key. And we know that you folks are well in knowledge around these kinds of things, but just as points of information. And last but not least, housing and subdivisions being built near this facility tend to have a greater value, and that 5 to 8% growth or additional cost-wise expands our tax base that we can draw on to help cover costs. We have sent hundreds of letters out to community groups, businesses, tourism and hospitality, physicians, and we've had wonderful response back from physicians, physician recruitment and retention, educational institutions, mental health organizations, looking at places that they can bring clients and patients, rehabilitation centers, looking for facilities that they can house offices, potentially, again, a revenue stream, and or bring clients that they can do work in gymnasiums, pools, and so on. So very, very involved and interested. And last but not least, sports organizations. We have tremendous numbers of different sports teams, recreation and competitive, that have come to us very excited about this proposal. As you can see, there have been 3 events that have come about over the last number of years in Nova Scotia, whether it be Antigonish with Special Olympics in 2018, the Scotties Tournament of Hearts in Sydney, or Touchdown Atlantic. All of these have generated tremendous amounts of income for the facilities that are there, for the towns that they're serviced in, and the number of people, 3,000, 5,000, 7,000 that have come into our communities, the television spin-offs and so on have been huge. So we're very, very fortunate to have all of that happen within this province, and we too can be part of that. At this point, I would like to turn things over to Peter and let him continue with our presentation.
Thanks, Mike. If you don't mind, I'm going to stand up, if that's all right. Yes, it's on. Is it on? Yeah. Okay, thank you. And my apologies to the folks behind me that, but you're not missing anything. First of all, thank you, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, for having us and Council for having us here. Secondly, thank you for what you do. Been there, done that, and I know that you don't get thanked as often as you should. So, looking at this facility, this facility was under consideration, of course, long before the disaster at Acadia, when Acadia decided to close its pool. But the writing was pretty much on the wall at the time that the facility first came to be under consideration. And it was considered in a partnership between the municipality of Kings, the town of Kentville, and the town of Wolfville. And we got pretty far down the road with that when it was determined that the best thing to do, because elections were so close, was to leave this decision, because it's a major decision, to the new elected representatives once they took their seats. So that's what's brought us to this stage. You've all, I hope, had an opportunity to review this. It's not necessary for me to read it, but I did want to say that the things that will come along if you decide to actually move forward with this project in cooperation with your municipal partners. What we're talking about here is regional. And there's not enough happens regionally in terms of benefit. I mean, we're all involved with King's Transit, and we're all involved with Valley Waste, and we're all involved with a number of with sewer enterprises and so on that aren't sexy and don't produce a lot of revenue. And we have to understand, nevertheless, those things are absolutely necessary. And that's what our taxpayers subsidize, because that's what the taxpayers have to have in order to have a successful community. Another thing you have to have in order to have a successful community is a regional recreation complex. And it has to be regional because none of us individually can really afford this. But as a region, we can make this happen if governments behave in the way that they've behaved historically. We know we've already had commitments that the province is on board. John Lohr stood at one of the meetings that we had and said, I stake my flag in this. So the province is on board. Cody Blois, prior to the election, said he's totally behind this. So the feds are on board. Now it remains for you to make a decision as to whether this is a project that you're anxious to see happen in order to increase tourism, which you're heavily into now, to increase the dollar at the restaurants that you're heavily into now, to increase the attendance of people at your artistic events, which you're heavily into now, to the point where they're absolutely sustainable and never always resting on the cusp and saying, can we afford to continue this in other years? As Mike has said, there are economic benefits to this. You can't look at the project itself and say, isolate that, and is it going to make money or lose money? It's going to lose money. But you work hard to schedule events in that center to the extent that they lose as little as possible on the operating side. You're going to get the capital side looked after. Generally speaking, you'll take a third of it. You and the other two municipalities, we're all called municipalities, believe it or not. You and the other two municipalities will take this on, but you'll take it on proportionately as you've taken on other projects such as King's Transit. Speaking of which, King's Transit will be a jewel here because Transit is going to transport people to this facility and bring them away from this facility. It's going to increase ridership. It's going to benefit the facility. It's going to make sure people from your community get there in the easiest way possible. So all these things, there's a synergy here. If you talk, at our last meeting also, which happened to be at the Old O, if you talk to the owners of the Old O who stood up at that meeting and said, we're not afraid of this new facility attracting another hotel, Godspeed, because it's going to fill our hotel. And we'd love to see it happen. And you're going to have a citizen committee, a citizen society, whether it's us or whether it's some other rendition of us, go out there and work the community itself in order to create special projects within the facility that are financed by local community and local business.
Sorry, sir, you've got about a minute left.
Fine, thank you. I better turn the page then. So some attractions are meant to be regional. We're going to have swimming and recreation. Anywhere there's swimming and recreation now, you put it out there that it's open for applications. They're filled within 5 or 10 minutes. You can't support seniors in the Waterville pool forever. It's not big enough, and they're not going to let you in there pretty soon. And seniors are dying to have this kind of a facility. Aquafit is really, really big. So we got a capacity problem now. Let's fix it. We don't have indoor recreation spaces for families. Let's fix it. You've had an opportunity to read this, so you've seen the letters from the different zip codes, area codes of people that have a diversity of interest. But it's been said before, and that the health community is very big on this. They have always been big on this. I attended meetings 10 years ago where the health community was trying to say, exercise is medicine. You've got to have, if you exercise your public, if your public has these opportunities, then you're going to have a decrease in diabetes, you're going to have an increase in strength, elder people are going to be able to be on their own longer. And all of these are synergies that need to come together in order for this type of thing to happen now. So I know I'm limited. I congratulate you on the fact that, and I'm skipping a lot, but you've read it. I congratulate you on the fact that you're even bringing this to the table. It needs serious discussion. If it doesn't get it, we're going to lose, in my opinion, a real opportunity for the region. And that's how we have to build in the future. We have to build regionally. The wineries are regional. Farming is regional. Tourism is regional. Recreation should be regional. So that's all I have to say on the subject. There was more I was supposed to say. I'll get chastised for that later, but we're open for questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike and Peter, and thank you, Peter, former mayor of Kings County, for your perspectives that you offer to everyone else, the general public, and especially us sitting here around the table. You're well versed in that area, so we do all appreciate that. Mayor McKay, myself, Kelly, and Councillor Van Niekerk and Councillor Palmer did attend the session at the Old O. It was very interesting, and I thank you for being here. So now I'm going to open the floor up to see if anybody has any questions. I'm looking up. I'm not meaning to put you on the spot, Mayor McKay. I'm just making sure that I don't exclude you from anything. So is there any questions from the gallery? I'm not the gallery, sorry, from the council. I'm sure there are questions, but not at this time. Councillor Williams?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. You claim that the recreational complex would run at a loss, but I think actually you do yourself a disservice because you haven't included the benefits, the economic benefits of having a healthier population. So I'd be a bit cagey of saying it will run at a loss because that might not be true.
Harder to measure that particular financial benefit, but absolutely correct in what you're saying. The mental health and health benefits, fewer people accessing services, reducing lines and queues for services medically wise, absolutely a benefit that we hope to see from all of this. Just hard to necessarily say we will see a 22% reduction in. Okay, well, we 100% agree with you.
And by the, if I can piggyback on that, by the same token, I totally agree with what you just said. By the same token, we will be making our area more attractive for future residents when they come and look at this area, say, what do you have to offer apart from the arts and culture and the lovely town of Wolfville? We have a gorgeous aquatic center that is just the beginning of what can be a future whole recreation site, which would include other forms of recreation other than aquatics. So you're looking at perhaps a 20-acre site. Gonna put one building on that site first, hopefully, and then we'll build out from there. So that's, there's going to be all kinds of cost savings, as you just said, in other areas. And you can't look at the facility, the building itself, and say, we can't have that because it's not going to pay for itself. Well, we're going to make it pay for itself to the extent that it can. And if we can turn a profit on it, all the better. But all these other collateral impacts are going to be beneficial to the community, to the tax dollar, to the health and welfare of the people.
Councillor Palmerton?
Thank you, Chair. I feel like Gordon Sinclair from Front Page Challenge, because I'm gonna ask the embarrassing question. When you guys are working on, you're doing numbers of what it would cost to run it, have you looked at the cost to build it?
Yes.
What's your estimate?
Phases wise, initially, we're looking at
59 to 65 $million for the,
For the first phase?
yes.
largest one of the bunch overall. But the bigger piece of it is we've looked at Yarmouth and the Mariner Center. We've looked at Pictou with the Wellness Center. We've looked at Bridgewater with the two different centers they have down there, Liverpool, Truro, even Sackville Sports Stadium, to see what have they done, what's the cost to them, what's the population that they are within. And we're finding, to be quite honest, all of those centers, including Summerside, which generates tremendous value and revenue from events being held within the facility. They're all smaller populated areas with very similar facility, and the response from people initially about cost up front, and the response they're hearing now from those same people 2, 3, 4 years later, as you, I know, have seen the data as well, is very positive in that they're seeing the fruits of their labors and they're seeing those dollars coming back to them in a variety of ways.
One of the spin-offs, if I may piggyback on that one, from the Cup Center, which is the Summerside Prince Edward Island Center, has been the attraction of a hotel that built right hard up against it and enters into the wellness center. So you've got that huge increase in your tax base like that. We already have hotel people saying we'd welcome another hotel. And we know that these do attract those forms of accommodation.
Yeah, I don't doubt for a second that that everybody would feel that we would need one. It's just, we really got to figure out how to pay for it and
And I'm
how
sorry,
much.
I did mean to say, excuse me for interrupting, but I did mean to say on the cost side that in most cases, you'll see senior governments come in with 70% roughly. So what you've got to divide between the three municipalities is that 30% of the capital cost. And, but at the same time, this site, wherever it is, I expect will be unserviced, and all those services have to be put in by someone. But that's going to attract additional forms of investment. So on the financial side, there are so many things to consider other than just the cost of this building.
And Council Palmer, one of the things to add to that too is that this, now that we've developed ourselves as a society, one of our commitments to this project long-term is the reaching out to these businesses within the Greater Valley area to bring funding in, to make application for a lot of different types of funding that we can bring to the table to help cover these initial costs of building. So that's why we want to make sure people understand we are here to support you and all that are involved in this, and that's part of the support. Thank you.
Counselor Van Niekerk.
Thanks. So I just wanted to say that as an athlete and coach and mother of 2 young kids, I'm very much in favor and support of a regional recreation facility. And thank you for your presentation. I was just wondering if you had any estimates or supporting information on a time frame. Like, I mean, in and out,
If the shovel went
from
in the
a-
ground tomorrow, you'd be 2 years.
okay,
If the shovel went in the ground tomorrow.
for phase 1.
Phase one.
Yeah.
And that's without any unforeseen delays of materials, of labor, of.
That's really encouraging because I think a lot of things that I've heard is, oh, it's 8 to 10 years.
They say 8 to 10 years, frankly, in my opinion. They say 8 to 10 years because first you have to make the
Of
decision.
yes.
You have to form a little contract between parties, then you have to wait for tender. But you have to build your tender documents, then you have to put it out for tender, then you have to wait for those to come back, then you have to sign your contracts and so on. Well, that takes almost 6 months to a year.
Mhm.
So you're not gonna get the shovel on the ground tomorrow. You're gonna get the
Yeah.
shovel on the ground
But
8 months.
Still 2 years is nice to hear.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Just checking, Mayor McKay?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for your presentation, and Peter, it's nice to see you again. Just a question in terms of, I too think of recreation as the one of the best things in our region, sure, and wondering if the society is partnering with us in terms of finding namesakes, sponsorships, and doing the fundraising campaign. Is that also sort of what you're hoping to do to work with us?
We're on board for that, Mayor, and that's why we're here, to tell you that we've formed this organization, that we have a large membership growing as we go on, and our commitment is that we will stay in place and we will go out and form name lists and targets, if you will, that we can approach, who want naming rights or who want to create rooms within the center itself and have their names associated with them. And then the usual plaque on the wall that would acknowledge the kind contributions of individuals within your community whom we know from historical example will want to be on board and contribute. Go up to the regional hospital and look at
Absolutely.
the names there.
And I think to piggyback on what Peter just said, seeking out grants, and some are very large scale grants, would be something that we would definitely pursue to provide the funding. And also, when we talk about multi-purpose facility for recreation, we're also talking about multi-use facility, meaning various groups that wish to come in and either make this facility their home by having small scale office space potentially rented within the building, that offer rehabilitation, that offer physiotherapy, that offer, all of a sudden, those are dollars coming in, committed dollars coming in to fund this project.
This is the dream of the kinesiology department at Acadian University. Come true.
That's wonderful. Thank you very much.
That's
I
not
love
good.
having a community partner.
I'm just checking, Mayor McKay, are you able to hear everything okay?
For the most part, yeah.
Let us know. So I'm not seeing any more lights on, any more questions. I do want to thank you for coming in. You're very well organized and we're gonna need you moving forward. I will say the 2 years is music to my ears. If we can make that happen, that would be doing a dance right now. So I do want to thank you for coming in.
Thank you very much.
Leave you to your business, and encourage you to encourage the other 2 municipalities to
Okay. So we are moving on. So I'm looking at Nick and Rachel Bedingfield to come up and give an introduction to the Parks and Recreation Review.
From there. Yeah.
Good morning. Can't see the mayor, but I think she's still here. Does it work?
Yeah.
Okay. Morning, everyone. We're here to talk more recreation on a little more local level this time. I believe everyone's been given a background or just on the work that we're going to be doing with Rachel, review of our recreation offerings. And we have a presentation here. This is a introduction and overview of the work that we're going to be doing in our area. Turn it over to Rachel.
I'll also just add, just while you're taking a drink, sorry, that I know there's a lot of energy and interest in the room related to recreation and eagerness to provide feedback. There will be very soon an opportunity to provide all that feedback from council. So Rachel will be giving kind of an overview of our process this morning and then taking a couple of questions, but I think the formal engagement piece for council will be coming later.
Thank you so much. And thanks everyone for welcoming me here. I think I know most of you, but for those of you that don't know me, my name is Rachel Bedingfield. And I'll get into that in a second. I love showing up on a council meeting when all of the presentations have recreation in it. So, anytime you want to have a conversation about anything to do with recreation, yeah, just sign me up for it. That's really great. Yeah, so thanks to Mayor, Deputy Mayor and Council for having me. Thank you to CIO for giving that quick overview. Essentially just that, and Nick mentioned it, we're going to give an overview of the work that we're doing here to support recreation in the town of Wolfville. I thought it would be important though that for those of you that don't know me, maybe understand a little bit more of my positionality and what I'm bringing to the table here. Because I think, you know, when we're talking about especially rural recreation, it's always really important to start with relationships, building relationships. So I actually grew up for the most part in Wolfville, and recreation for me looked very different. It was quite very wide reaching. That was before cell phones. That was like I had brown hair then. And I remember living across the street from where the recreation hub is now and the recreation center and spending hours beating the tennis ball against the wall. I remember exploring with my friends on the dikes in the fields, especially when it was frozen and probably really dangerous. But, you know, back then it was the 80s and nobody really cared. And pretending that there were trolls in the dikes. I remember walking across the dike cow fields. I can't tell you how many scars I have on my legs from jumping the barbed wire fences, running from the cows to get to soccer practice. I remember we used to do with Wendy, we used to do community plays in the park. At Willow Park from the school, being involved in Girl Guides, sports, all of these things. Recreation was kind of what you did when I was growing up in Wolfville. And when we look at recreation, we really define it as anything that you choose to do in your time outside of obligations. That's really broad. And so whenever you have control over your time, you make a decision, democratic decision about how you want to spend it. And so the role of public recreation, when we talk about it, is putting the conditions. And what I mean by conditions, it could be facility development, it could be skill development, it could be access to equipment, any of those conditions in place so that you have the opportunity to participate in your community in the way you choose to do that. That's how we define recreation. So from a public perspective, when we're looking at community recreation, it's our job to make sure that everyone in our community, regardless of where you live or who you are, has access to all of those things you need in order to thrive. So it's a really, really broad piece. We talk about it, how it impacts our spiritual, cognitive, physical, emotional well-being. So if you really want to focus on creating a community that fosters wellness, recreation is where you put your emphasis. So what I wanted to, I also have notes in front of me because I could talk about this forever. So every now and then I'm going to check to make sure that I'm on the right thing here. So this is kind of the flow that we came up with for today. So what do we mean when we say framework? Because this is one of the things that I'll be working on is the framework for recreation in Wolf Hole. Connecting with town priorities. It's really important that the priorities that you folks have, that the town has, show up in all of the things that recreation does in this town, including all the way into how we work with, program for communities, how it shows up in festival events. The decisions you make around here need to be able to be seen in the work that we do in community. What might this look like in a community? So we're going to start up here in the whole sector piece, and then we're going to bring it down. And what could this look like in Wolf Hole? Why does this work matter? I don't feel like this is a hard sales pitch for these people, for you folks, but I've got a few things to put in your pocket in case anybody asks you. We're going to talk a little bit about parks and the role of public parks in community, and then next steps and to the point of your CAO, where I'm asking for your support moving forward and how I'm going to. Does that sound okay with everyone? Right. Just push. Where? Step one.
Just scroll down.
Okay, there we go. This is where I pop out. Okay. All right. So in general, and again, I'm going to start talking about all the things that are impacting the recreation sector. So again, we're going to get back down to Wolf Hole, but there is a national sector. There's actually an international sector of recreation. Within Canada, we have a national framework. 2015 seems like a long time ago. There has been updates to this document, but fundamentally, this is what the recreation sector in Canada has decided. This is the sandbox that we want to play in. You'll notice that I use a lot of play and recreation terms. It's part of like the gig that we go with. So the vision in general for recreation in Canada is that everyone is engaged in meaningful, accessible recreation experiences that foster individual well-being of nature and built environments, and community well-being. It's important here to pause that when we talk about public recreation, at no point do Nick and I feel that we own recreation. You can only participate in recreation if you come to us. In fact, throughout all of this, we're going to talk about how we put an equity lens on that. So again, you get to choose how you want to spend your free time. That is your democratic choice, right? Whether it's volunteering at a festival or yoga in the park or going to the music or simply just sitting in your backyard and reading a book. Dream. So that's part of it, right? Is that this is not something that if you come to us, that's your quality time. Playing soccer in the backyard is just as valuable as signing up for a team and playing in the league. So what do we value as a sector? Public good, inclusion and equity, sustainability, and lifelong participation. This is where I want you to start looking at the connections between the sector values and your own values as a town, because you can see there's lots of parallels. And this is what I want you to hold us accountable to, that make sure that we are actually working with your values as we move through this. Principles of operation, outcome-driven, quality, relevance, evidence-based, partnership, and innovation. There's a lot of data-driven approaches to what we do. This is a very academic field. Acadia used to have a really strong program in recreation management, leisure studies. You hear the word leisure all the time. That's really an academic term. But is very much data-driven, in part because we are constantly needing to prove our worth. Goals of the national strategy are active living, getting communities more active, inclusion and access, direct alignment with one of your priorities, connecting people with nature. This is where we talk about our role in creating sustainable communities. Supportive environments. This goes back to those conditions in place in order for people to be able to participate actively in their community in a wellness sense. And then recreation capacity. How are we as professionals and as a sector promoting continuation of high quality people in the field so that you have a deep bench for hiring really good people here? So I just wanted to, I'm not even looking at my notes. Who knows where we're going? I put these things at the bottom here too, kind of what we're holding in terms of how we're doing our work. And that's really what a framework is. How are we doing our work? So what are kind of the bumper boards that are keeping us in tune with all of these different visions and priorities that we have? So we talk about co-design. Co-design means that we're bringing a lot to the table with our past knowledge, but this is really based on what you folks inform us, what our stakeholders and partners tell us, what our community tells us, what our neighborhoods and parks tell us, and kind of helping us go along the way through this whole journey. So that means that there, and I'll get to this at the end, but there's going to be times in this work that we stop, we pause, say, this is what we've heard. Does this sound right? Is this, are we on the right track? Because we want to make sure that we're keeping folks up to date with all the things that we're looking at. Belonging is a phrase that continues to come up in the updated strategy. Actually, we talk a lot about belonging and how important that is. Social capital, especially, you know, with Devon's work with planning, as you start to plan and expand your community, how do we ensure that we're supporting social capital so that the residents who exist, who are still here and have been here all along, feel like they matter just as much as the town moves to promote new people moving in? How do we make sure that everybody feels responsible for the support and the running of our community? It's not just the town, it's not just the business community. Resilient communities, when crisis hits, are we able to support each other? Relational welfare is another term that we'll be using, which is essentially, it matters that we care for each other. We're working with relationships first. We take a community approach, not necessarily a top-down approach. And then ethical spaces. And this very much aligns with this idea of reconciliation. And how are we operating the work that we do alongside other perspectives? Ethical spaces allows for every perspective to be at the table, and then we're going to move forward together. Okay, so what do we mean when we say framework? I'm actually going to look at my notes on this one. So just really quickly, this is going into the piece of it. And you can see there's a picture there of how that translated into a provincial shared strategy for recreation. So we are guided both by a provincial body, which is Recreation Nova Scotia, and a federal body, which is Canadian Parks and Recreation Association. So Wolfville, the town of Wolfville, is a member of Recreation Nova Scotia, and subsequently you're a member of CPRA, Canadian Parks and Recreation Association. So you have that membership, you're working in the field. Nick and his team have access to all of that information. There's a conference, there's lots of professional development opportunities, there's all of these things. But this is what makes us professional, is that we're connected to a professional field. A few things that were updated that I think it's really important for you to know in the new framework. When we went out after COVID, everything changed. So we went out as a sector and everybody said, how have things shifted for you? So there's more alignment now with addressing climate change. Again, I think that's a priority for you folks. Leading in EDIAB, so equity, diversity, inclusion, accessibility, and belonging, is a top priority for how we show up in communities across Canada. Supporting an aging population, knowing that I think by 2048, like a large portion of the population is going to be over 65. How are we doing that? Homelessness, as it shows up in our parks and our spaces and our community. When we're looking at facilities, are we thinking of, we talked about multi-use facility, are we also looking at it for a way for emergency preparedness, cooling centers, warming centers? How is this showing up for us? Mental health, physical and social health. These are huge issues now in our community, especially in a pandemic or an epidemic of loneliness. Placemaking as a contribution to community well-being, addressing social isolation, technology and changing, all of these things. And then an ever decreasing volunteer commitment. And I think some of you see that in the full as well. People just are in a state of crisis, therefore they don't have as much spare time to do. So let's bring it from here back down to community. So what this means for us in our work is that we, at this point, are asking different types of questions. to ourselves, to the people that we're speaking with. So when it comes to, for example, everyone is welcome. So inclusion and access and how we create this sense of belonging in our community. You know, we've talked about how can individuals recognize that they're genuinely invited to engage in our programs? How do we let people know? What does feeling welcome or feeling of belonging look like, feel like, and how are we portraying that, right? Are we just putting things on social media? Are we going up into different neighborhoods and having conversations? Are we building relationships? Are we sitting at different tables? What does that look like? In what ways do we convey our inclusive policies and practices? We know that the town, you know, is a leader in this work provincially from an accessibility and inclusion perspective. What does that look like on the ground when it comes to recreation? Are you holding us accountable as a recreation staff to make sure that we are being inclusive of everyone in the community? And how successful have these approaches been? And crucially, what is the nature of our culture? I think these are really important questions to ask. You know, the other side of it is when we expand our horizon, what is the role of recreation in crisis? So multi-use facility development, I just talked about that. Acknowledging that recreation can provide an opportunity for escape and return to normalcy. Physical activity can mitigate the negative effects of trauma on individuals. We see this all the time. I talk to my colleagues in Port-au-Pic and the work that they've been doing after the atrocity that happened there. Programming can provide unique opportunities to create cohesive community after times of crisis, and WIFL has certainly experienced some of that over the last couple of years, and helping individuals maintain a sense of identity and of belonging. And when we talk about resiliency and crisis and movement, we talk about everything from when there is a natural disaster based on environmental pieces to even a change in council, or even an influx of newcomers into your community. This is something that can really kind of jar people. And so what is the role of recreation in supporting people through that time of shift, of change, of crisis? How do we show up at those tables to make sure that they feel that they matter? Because that's what we hear. We just want to know that we matter. So why does this work matter? Oh my gosh, that was just the most amazing leadway that I didn't even plan for. That was great. Okay, so this is when we talk about recreation in general, this is what that looks like. Recreation as a tool for contemporary society. So that means that we have a role in supporting social, cultural, and democratic structures in general. That's the role of recreation. As societies become more complex, they also become more relevant or reliant on recreation as a tool for solving new and evolving programs. If you have a solid recreation department or foundation, then you have the ability to meet with community and connect around these more complex things that are coming into our sense. It doesn't necessarily just need to rely on you folks. And creating a social good. That is, like, recreation's fun. Like, if we're not having fun, if Nick and I aren't smiling through this all, then we're doing something really wrong. This is we know at least one thing, how to have fun doing it. Just a few quick cartoons here. One is about the library. Choosing to go to the library is your democratic right. That is recreation. Library falls within recreation. It's a really important entity when it comes to equity in this community. You can see in this cartoon, it talks about the importance of library when it comes to literacy, when it comes to access to film, when it comes to access to knowledge in general, right? This is part of our piece about building capacity in our community. How do we make sure that people are equipped with all of the things they need? Quick stat, what do Canadians say about parks and recreation? 98% of the benefits the community and its essential service. 75% say it helps children and youth lead healthy lifestyles. 77% say it's a major factor in crime reduction. The tighter knit your community is, the less likely someone's able to commit a crime. 93% say it improves health. 89% say it boosts social cohesion. We know that people who are more connected to their community have a larger safety net, are less likely to become homeless. At the very least, they'll be sleeping on couches instead of on the streets. So they have always someone to go to. We know that, you know, in a state right now where we have a lot of domestic violence, we know that women who are involved in recreation and have that network are more able to leave an abusive partner. We know all the benefits to having access to recreation and a community network to create that sense of belonging and social cohesion can only benefit our community. So let's pause a little bit and talk about parks. So I'm going to go back up here again. There is a movement across the country that I think also, there's a movement across the country. That was really deep. There is, there's a movement across the country. there's going to be a national gathering in Saskatoon, because that's where you go, where we're going to actually get together and talk about the importance of specifically urban and a new term, peri-urban, which is the age I'm at. I'm like really sensitive to anything that says peri, but it just means like smaller parks. And how we align that. How do we ensure inclusion and access in those spaces? Again, it aligns exactly with what you folks, what I'm hearing are your priorities. So connecting nature and reconciliation, specifically, we're talking about listening to the land. How are we talking about parks and also taking into consideration the natural spaces and ecosystems, right? I mean, Nick and I did a tour of all of your amazing parks. Yesterday, we counted, I don't know, like 40 turtles down at one of them. How are we ensuring that people have access to these spaces, but also that the natural environment is able to grow and thrive, because that matters when it comes to our footprint. Ways of belonging, supportive, inclusive communities. How are we creating park spaces that are just that, right? Everyone feels welcome, they're safe, they see seen in these parks, they're welcome in these parks. And it does matter where these parks are and how they show up. So the folks that live up here may not feel comfortable going over there to that park and vice versa. So we need to have that information. And when we're touring all the parks, which you haven't done, I encourage you to do, I'm sure you have, they all have a different personality, don't they? Like all of these natural spaces have a personality based on the neighborhoods that they exist in. And then nurturing resiliency. And this is both linked with climate change and linked with the local population. Go into more of that. So that part of it is going to be, how do we align all of those pieces in the framework so that you have the tools you need to make decisions on designing local community parks. And so this is my last slide here, I promise. So this is the actual, how does this show up? So it's really important to me that you have a background of this work, because we are going to go out in community. We're going to be seen in community. We're going to be doing some really fun stuff with community. So if you get any questions, you're like, no, she's legit. It's okay. So that's important for me. You can trust her. She's okay. I've seen her around. So what that means from a community stakeholder and partnership engagement, that means that we're going into neighborhoods, not just downtown. We're not just asking people to come to us. We're going to go to people. So we were touring some of the different neighborhoods and cul-de-sacs, are using some of the parks that exist in a way to have small intentional conversations. How does recreation show up for you? How does a town show up for you? What does belonging look and feel like for you? What kind of things do you need to help you thrive? All of those different pieces. And so we're doing that with some of our summer staff. And, because we're recreation, we like to shroud everything in play. So there's obviously going to be some fun as we engage with people. It's not just an intense conversation when you sit across from each other. Learning conversations, which is a community development term that essentially says we're going to be picking apart all of the things that we've heard in order to take some data from it. Neighborhood surveys, community mapping, where are the sacred spaces? Is it like me when I was growing up where I spent so much time on the dikes? I think that matters a little bit. And then with regards to you folks and staff, this is what we were talking about before, but having smaller group meetings, one-on-ones, and then you can see up here the key milestones. So in July, if a council is interested, we can bring back what have we learned and where are we going? And that's when we're going to do our check-in after speaking with everybody. Does this seem right? What have we missed? Where else do we need to go? July and August, we're going to have the first draft of the framework, ideally be able to bring it to you. And then we'll work with CIO on that. And then September is the final work. So there's going to be a final document at the end of this. And also, and this is really important, and Devin reminded me of this, all of this work will show up as well in your NPS so that everything is in a nice document for this is kind of like how we run the town. And then the framework is a backup for staff to be able to use to say, this is detailing into that. This is me getting into my data stuff. I do a lot of this. I think that's it. Did I miss anything? I feel like I covered it. I should have paused and said, so Nick, what do you think? I need to thank you all for inviting me to be able to do this work. This is really great. The staff have been just absolutely wonderful to work on. I think you should all feel very proud of the staff that you have and their commitment to serving all of your community. So I guess now we open it.
Thank you so much. And I do agree that recreation is fun and you guys look like you're having fun. So thank you for that. As our CEO said, that there's going to be lots of time for us to be discussing this and workshop it. So I'll just open it up to anybody on on council, if they have any questions, maybe regarding the framework, I'm happy to see the lenses that you're all using, especially the EDIA. We had Kevin, the new community recreation programmer here yesterday, and he provided some input. So that was really exciting to see how you're working that into everything. So that was really nice. And then also the climate action, your mental health perspectives, placemaking, and then the volunteer base. So those are just a few of the key points that I picked up, but I will open it up to anybody if they have any, maybe just general questions, not specific. Comments are welcome also. I don't want to shut, I'll go to
Yeah,
Mayor
we go to
McKay
Mayor McKay
first.
Oh, thank you. Maybe this is more for the CAO, I'm not really sure. Thank you for the presentation, Rachel and Nick. I appreciate that. I do believe recreation is sort of the backbone of our community. When we had a presentation on loneliness not that long ago, I think we all agreed that we didn't have a loneliness problem, and our parks and our spaces and our programming is something that contributed to that. So thank you for the work you've done thus far. We've done a lot of work on this over the years, and we've started park plans and all those kinds of things. So I'm interested to see what's happening next. The first thing I just want to know is we already this year had a capital plan and an operations plan that had recreation in it, and some parks that were on the docket and have been for years. So just making sure that the plan we have set out for this year is still the plan, and then this will inform further development, because I think we need to keep making progress on the things we already said we would do, and this would further inform what's next. I know we're going to workshop it, but if you could just put my mind at ease that we're still going to do the things this year that are in the plan we have.
CEO, did you want to respond?
No,
Oh, look, good.
You wanna take- Okay. Sorry. Thank you for that question. I really appreciate it. The short answer is yes, absolutely. We actually have been meeting about that this week, last week, in the last couple of days, whenever those days were, specifically about this. So I should have said this, that there is no part of our work that starts from scratch. You folks have already done so much. So it's part of my work is getting a foundation about all the work that you've already done and then moving forward from there. I don't like engaging community a second, third time when we haven't done anything. So specifically, Mayor McKay, we took a look yesterday at those specific green spaces that are found in your capital plan to make a plan about how we're going to show up with infrastructure this summer and then build on top of that. I don't know if you want to talk more about that.
Yeah, I think in general, like we have numbers in the budget for a couple of different spaces that we've looked at. And I think the approach that has worked well for Rachel and in other areas has been to sort of create, do some placemaking and some animation of those areas and sort of continue to build community and see how people are using the spaces already and what the possibilities are, and then kind of go on from there. So we'll kind of be incrementally putting in some either temporary or semi-permanent infrastructure with the budgets that we have, working within those, and then doing those parks animation activities and things like that. So we're really getting into spaces, learning how the community, what the community wants to see in the parks, and then moving forward from there.
Okay, so yes, the parks that are on our plan right now are going to be moving forward, and because it's May now, so I'm assuming those will start relatively soon for those parks to be engaged this summer.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor McKay. Councillor Butler.
Just a couple of comments. I guess I was going to ask a question in terms of how this is going to sort of factor into our parks master plan. Mayor McKay already mentioned that because there was a fair bit of work done on that, but nothing substantial and final ever came to us. So I wasn't sure if this first draft of recreation framework and parks work was that, or if this is working more still towards a parks master plan. I guess that was a question. A couple of comments. I've known Rachel for like 30 years, and I'm so excited to you know, have gone through and seen like this great journey to the wonderful presenter that you are. And I'm interested, and sports are not my thing. But I will say thank you for including theater in your rec discussion, because that is my sport. And that is wonderful to see this, that is making it, that is including me in this conversation. And very few have ever included me in a conversation about sports or recreation, because a lot of folks don't consider it the same thing. So thank you for making this framework inclusive of everyone. I love when you said EDIAB. I included the B. I've never heard the B for belonging at the end of that. I'm going to add that in. So thank you. The connection between nature and history, Barb just left, and I was just going to say we had a really great conversation, and the deputy mayor mentioned it last night about naming our spaces. I'm on the Equity and Anti-Racism Committee, and we talked a lot about street naming, municipal buildings, parks, and that connection to not just naming it after, I'll say it, a white man on the wall over there, but actually connecting it to nature and our history. And I love that that is also part of the work that you have brought to us today. So those are just I guess I did ask a question about the Parks Master Plan if there was an answer, but other than that, it was just mostly comments of thank you very much for this.
Thank you for that. I appreciate that. Yeah, I think the power and messaging of recreation has been kind of taken away and turned into it's just physical activity and sport. And that is simply not the case. This is why I start with it's anything you choose to do outside of any time that you have an obligation in, right? And may I say, if you were going to turn theater into a competitive sport, you would be great at it. With regards to the master plan, again, I'll just refer back to my comments that my understanding is all of the information that exists, I am kind of putting that together succinctly and then building from that. So I'm turning to Devin. I don't know if you want to comment on that piece. Or you?
I think
Somebody else who works for the town.
what the direction I think we're heading is that we will come out of this with a process for how we approach building parks, as opposed to a 20-year master plan of how this is what we're going to do in year 5 and year 7 and year 9. We're going to come up with a process of how we approach individual parks that'll be much more, practical, I think, and realistic in terms of we can pick and choose which parks we want to go into and improve, and then we have a process by which we do that.
I don't know if that's helpful. I also know that especially, Mayor McKay, with what you were saying, that there are some parks that have been on the docket and you have citizens that are impatient to have something happen. And I got to say, that's amazing that people really want parks to show up in their community. So if it's helpful, perhaps as we move forward, especially on the ones that exist in the capital budget, happy to make sure that we're communicating that process as we go along, so that you also have that information to bring back to the folks that I know that are reaching out to you. But what I can tell you is that anytime people want to talk about parks, bonus. Yeah, I think that's really great. If you have a community that's looking for more democratic community space that is getting people outdoors, like, come on, win, win.
All right, I don't see any more questions. I just want to thank you for the presentation. And I did learn myself a couple years ago that recreation is not just sport. It's something different for everybody. So everybody has a different interpretation, which is wonderful. And I do want to say, since COVID, I think we all realized how important our parks and our trails are toward the mental and physical well-being of our residents. So that's like a top priority that we've talked about on council and we'll continue to talk about. So that being said, I don't see any more questions, so we will move on. Thank you so much. And with that, we'll move on to number 5. Just want to see if I think the gallery kind of cleared out after the regional recreation facility presentation. So I don't see anybody in the gallery, but I'll just look to Laura, and there's nobody online, so there is no public input today. So we will move on to staff reports. I see that our eager staff is already up there. The first one, RFD 019-2025 is our video camera pilot. I see, I'll let Barb and Caden take that away.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Good morning, through the chair to council and to staff. Oh, yes. We'll let everybody get settled. Thank you. Once again, through the deputy mayor to council and to staff, it's a pleasure to have an opportunity to help you unpack this report today. I'm here with Caden, who's our community compliance. I'm saying more and more community safety coordinator. And we're going to walk you through this request for decision. So you've got the report in front of you. One of the things that I want to draw your attention to, and I want to start by kind of expressing a little bit of gratitude to this council and also the previous council. So when we started tackling this concern and the challenges that we were having in this very specific group of streets, so this neighborhood within the town, it was really challenging. It was taking a lot of staff time. There was a lot of pressure from community to find a way to deal with the behaviors that were unwanted. And one of the great things about Wolfville is that we've been empowered to try different things. This is a town that likes to pilot ideas, and that's a really effective way to see not only if ideas will work, but also to see if something's a good fit for the unique community that Wolfville is. It's also a good opportunity to try something and then allow all the other conditions around it to evolve to a certain extent, which is kind of an overview of what we're presenting to you today. So to take folks back in time to, 2021, 2022, which is when we were ramping up for this, we were seeing a lot of unwanted behaviors in what we were calling the close to campus neighborhood. We have no doubt that the misuse of alcohol was a contributing factor. These events were happening later at night. They seem to be tied into some party activities. And it was also a time when we were still kind of managing the restrictions of COVID. We know now through hindsight the exceptional impact that had specifically on younger folks who were, all the restrictions that were designed to keep them safe were causing additional issues that we were all tasked to navigate. So we were seeing all of these challenging behaviors, and the community was coming to the town and saying, like, you got to do something about this. You got to try something, try anything. Something has to happen. So we went ahead and we launched this pilot to see if video cameras in that close to campus neighborhood would have the kind of impact that might be valuable to continue with, or again, in the spirit of a pilot, maybe not continue with. We were trying something to see if it worked and what the outcome would be. So our two primary objectives of this pilot, and we came to those after doing engagement and chatting with folks, what we wanted to do was, again, keeping in mind that we believed that a lot of this unwanted behavior was happening when people were misusing alcohol and drugs. We know when people are doing that they're kind of, the idea of long-term consequence is out the window. And we know that you need to put some behavioral speed bumps in place to stop people from taking that step to doing something that we deem to be unwanted behavior. And that can be anything from vandalism, stealing street blades, which are street signs, stop signs, or, you know, any of these nuisance party behaviors, all of these things which were becoming challenging. So we wanted to create something that would be a behavioral street bump or street bump. We have those, a behavioral, a behavioral speed bump. And that was meant to deter minor crimes such as vandalism or theft or some of the other unwanted behaviors. And then when that speed bump did not work, we wanted a way to hold people accountable. And not only to say potentially proceed with charges through a summary offense ticket or through our friends at the RCMP, but we wanted to have an opportunity to know why these things were happening in this neighborhood. For so many years within Wolfville, it was just this sense of, well, we're a town and gown community, this is just how it is. And we wanted to try something to say, well, maybe it doesn't have to be this way. So a number of years have passed, and some things have changed. First of all, COVID is done, although I should always knock on wood, right? That's right. So the restrictions lifted. We've also established a better working relationship with the RCMP. We've also continued to build relationships with our on-campus counterparts at Acadia. We do more things like the Welcome to Wolfville Street Party, understanding that if people feel connected to a community, those unwanted behaviors might be mitigated. We've worked more closely with landlords, understanding the impact that these things had on their properties, their businesses, and their peace of mind. We've also done a lot more work in kind of just creating better environments around those big celebratory weekends. And to be clear, back when we started talking about the need for this pilot, it wasn't just a Cheatin' Cup weekend. As if you can't see Caden rolling his eyes and shaking his head, this was ongoing, this was constant, it was non-stop, and it was really having an impact on the community. So we rolled out the cameras, and what we found was some of the behaviors stopped happening or were reduced. We can't conclusively say that that was because of these behavioral speed bumps. We think that might play a part, but we have no real concrete evidence that that was what happened. What we know for sure is that when we captured footage of things happening, we actually couldn't take that next step. And that was learning for me. I mean, every time something happened and Caden pulled the footage and we had the footage, we were like, we've got it on film. And then nothing. We just could not go any further with it. We fully believed that, naively so, full disclosure, we believed that if we took that to the RCMP, that they could just action it. They could not. We believed if we shared it with our partners at Acadia, they would recognize somebody and be able to action it. That didn't happen. Even as recently as St. Patty's Day, we had one more case of somebody vandalizing property, and we had it on film, and we could do nothing with it. So based on that, we're coming back to you and we're saying, we don't know for sure that the cameras worked. We know when we captured footage, we couldn't really do anything with it. And we also acknowledge that there was an impact to personal privacy by the use of these cameras. We had to establish that when we did our privacy impact assessment before we put the cameras up. So at the end of this trial period, in the spirit of transparency and accountability and saying sometimes we have ideas and we don't know if they did what they were supposed to do, but it's incumbent upon us to report back to you as the decision makers and say, this is where we are. We're happy to answer your questions. We've made a recommendation. This is up to council to really kind of pull this apart, and that's why Caden and I are here. Maren is also joining us here. She's got that amazing experience being out with Caden in a lot of these situations. So we can add information and help you get to a place of better decision making. The one thing I will say that we didn't kind of add into this report is that this project was fairly easy to roll out. So if there's concern about taking down the cameras, and if we find in 3 years that there's a need in the future, it's fairly easy to restart something like this, likely with the new privacy impact assessment. But again, that's kind of where we'll leave it, and we would really welcome your questions. We're here to provide that support.
All right. Who is? Oh, Counselor Van Niekerk.
Okay.
Counselor Butler.
Okay, thank you very much. I lived through the process of this coming through in my first council term. It might have been one of the first big public input moments for myself as a new counselor. My question, there was a lot of public input and folks that came to us because they felt this pilot project was infringing on their privacy rights. It was creating, my words, a traumatizing environment for marginalized communities that are coming from big cities that are under police interrogation all the time. They were coming to this beautiful, welcoming space, and cameras were now turning it into what they've left, and they were feeling, it made them feel more unsafe than safe. So my question is, like, did you receive any feedback throughout the pilot project from individuals about that? Or was that just before we said yes, that was a hot topic? And then after they were installed, was it still a hot topic?
I think you hit it right there. I know leading up to it, it was a hot topic.
Yeah.
We did talk with folks about that. Yep. But once the implementation of the cameras came about, it went fairly silent. Yep.
Thank you.
Counselor Van Niekerk.
Thank you. I just had some questions around, I guess, because I wasn't on council when this decision was made, but when I've heard concerns from the community about the cost in acquiring all the cameras to begin with, and then I believe the cameras were upgraded at some point to a higher resolution. And there was a lot of folks that I've spoken to were concerned about the investment that the town made in the cameras. So I guess I'm just wondering if we are going to take the cameras down, would we be looking to recoup those costs? Assuming they are in the hundreds of thousands of dollars, like I heard, I don't know. So I guess that's a question. But is there an opportunity to recoup those costs? And then if we were to do that, let's say in 3 years' time, we wanted to put them back up, would we have to then go out and purchase new cameras at and yet higher cost?
No problem. No, I can answer that.
Okay.
Easily for you. So yeah, in the beginning, there was 10 cameras and it was about $72 per camera per month. So that annually was about $9,500, about $10,000 a year.
And that's for ongoing.
Ongoing.
So there was no initial purchase cost
No,
on
no,
top of that.
We're technically renting these units per
Oh,
month
okay.
to livable
So this whole
cities.
thing about them costing $400,000?
Not at all.
Okay.
Not at all. No, no.
All right.
We did upgrade one camera to a 4K resolution to see.
Yeah.
And that comes up a few dollars, not 72, maybe about around 80 or so. I'd have to get the exact numbers in front of me, but it does not near the 400,000 mark that you may be thinking.
Oh, okay.
And then to your point, if we do conclude this and we want to come back in the future, it'd be the same sort of setup unless we did outright buy the units. That would be a bigger cost.
Yeah.
But for this pilot, we opted for the rental of the units per month.
Okay, great.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep.
I had one more question.
Sure.
I was just wondering, Barb, if you could elaborate a little bit more on why you weren't able to action the footage that you saw, you witnessed the crime. Why wasn't that I can imagine it.
Through the chair to the counselor, thank you for that clarifying question. So we were not using any facial recognition type software. So even say, for example, the counselor is the one, of course, that would never happen, but if the counselor were the one committing the act, and we had footage that clearly showed it was you.
Yeah.
If we knew it was you, that's great, but we never got to the point where we had footage and we took it to the RCMP or shared it with Acadia and they could say, oh, that's Kelly. We never had somebody come forward and identify the person that was caught on film, so to speak. We also didn't have any mechanism to share that footage publicly. There were certainly situations in our community with private businesses where vandalism had occurred. They had security footage. They put that on social media. They found out who it was, and then they were able to action it. But the stumbling point for us was that we couldn't get that person on film identified in a way that allowed for police enforcement to proceed.
Right. And they weren't able to take that footage and investigate who it was, or, I mean, or.
Not without any leading identifiers to say who it is. It was pretty much just chasing an unknown person.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Counselor Elliott?
Thank you. I agree with you that it was hugely controversial at the time and emotions were kind of fraught. But one thing I was not expecting was the number of other surrounding communities that were already using cameras when we were making that decision. Hansport, Windsor, I don't know, Acadia University, indoors and outdoors. I just was astounded. And I wondered if you'd gone to any of our neighboring communities and found out if they're in a similar position.
Through the chair to the counselor, one of the interesting pieces for us when we were getting ready to roll this program out, as I referenced earlier, we took in our opinion, required step of completing a privacy impact assessment, a PIA. So when we reached out to the province for assistance with that framework, they congratulated us and noted how many other areas had rolled out cameras without doing that privacy impact assessment. Again, we felt that was our due diligence. So again, kind of very informally chatting with folks about how things are going. It seems to be a similar situation. We hope that these cameras increase the level of accountability, acting as a behavioral speed bump. But unless you're seeing, as the RCMP, for example, does from time to time, they'll take security footage, they'll put it on social media and say, do you know these people? It's a very rare occurrence. We don't see it happening often. So I don't know if anybody's having great success with it. To that point, the other big change that happened in the time that we were doing this pilot is the number of individuals. And again, we don't have this measured out. We don't have anything. I say that quite honestly, we have no scientific numbers on this, but we do know in general that the cost of home security cameras has reduced. Through narrative kind of exchanges, we know that more and more people are spending $25 on Amazon and putting up the camera with great capacity on their own homes. That was not the case when we were first rolling this out. So we feel that there are more cameras in these neighborhoods on private homes than there were when we rolled this out.
Okay, can I ask one more question? Probably the primary thing that prompted me to vote yes for the cameras in the day was the iconic neon Acadia Cinema marquee. Because there was a practice at the time of stalwart guys jumping and whacking the neon. And it's hugely expensive. And in fact, I think there's only one person left in the province that can repair those things. So I like to think a private business could do this, but some places like we're run by a co-op, it's challenging. So, I mean, there are still reasons to keep an eye out and I hope that people will. So I can live with it.
Just checking in with Mayor McKay. Do you have any questions or comments?
I would, does somebody else want to go for Ian?
Ian?
Sure. I just want to make a comment that I wasn't on council when this started, but I sort of came in when we were continuing on with the program. And I really can't underestimate the comment that Ms. Shaw made regards to Acadia, the landlords and the RCMP, the relationship. We have worked hard, the town has worked hard on improving that. And I think pretty clearly it is in a substantially different place than it was how many years ago was it that we started this? 5 years ago? In a substantially different place, and I take my hat off to that. I think that's very important, and I want to recognize that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Palmer. I agree, I concur with that. I don't see anybody else. Mayor McKay?
Thank you. Yeah, I wanted to say the same thing. One, I was on council when this came in, like Councillor Butler and Councillor Elliott, it was a heated and polarizing topic for sure. And I guess Deputy Mayor Ingham was there too. It was polarizing, but I'm happy we tried it. I think we listened and did our best and come to this conclusion that it didn't give us any outcomes, but I would like to give a shout out to our staff for planning it, for Caden and Barb and Glenn, everybody who was involved in this. I think, to echo Councillor Palmer's, it is incredible where we've come in the last few years, 2 years, I guess, in our relationships with the RCMP and how we deal with things happening on the street. And I think it would be, if we'd be remiss without saying, credit to the Acadia students, their guests, and our young people who aren't causing havoc on our streets like we were a number of years ago. So I think it's kudos to their maturity in responsible partying, if we want to call it that, having fun, let's call it that. So I think that thank you to them as well. So yeah, I think we've come a long way.
Thank you. I don't have anything to add. I agree with my fellow councillors. Thank you for that. Can I ask somebody looking at Councillor Butler to put the motion on the floor, please?
I will, certainly. I move that Committee of the Whole forward the following motion to Council for decision, that Council approve the conclusion of the video camera pilot project.
Can I have a seconder? Councillor Elliott, thank you. Are there any questions on that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that is carried unanimously. Thank you. All right.
Tough acts to follow.
We are now switching to the Kent Avenue sidewalk. I'll look to Director Lake for that presentation, please.
We are entering the nuts and bolts section of the agenda. I don't. I was just going to open the report. It's just in the agenda. I can start without that. The essence of this is we have been looking at a project on Kent Avenue for a few years, and just with the complications around project delivery and capacity, this has actually, I think, been on the books for at least 2.5, if not 3 years. We went out to tender with the sidewalk replacement from Queen to Pleasant, and it came in over budget. We had some existing design costs, and the essence of this ask in front of council is asking for more budget to complete this project. So we're going from 250,000 to 325,000. There is some discussion in the report just around trying to do some value engineering around the width of the sidewalk. So going from a 1.8 meter sidewalk in sections to 1.5, and some costs that may be able to be saved with that. But I don't think a whole lot more needs to be said about this. This is has been in front of council as part of the capital budget, and is a project we're looking to complete this summer.
Thank you. I will open the floor up to any questions or comments. I'm looking at Councillor Palmer.
I don't know why it's always me asking the money questions, but I'm gonna keep, I guess I'm terrible. Somebody has to. Okay, so first question I have is, have you talked to the contractor about the 1.5 versus the 1.25? Is that what we're talking about, I think? So do they know? Okay, the reason I ask that is there forms that there's not a form that's 1.5 and there.
That would be fine. Yeah, it's totally fine to fit things in the field. Some of it might be appropriate to keep it at 1.8 depending on the features. There's a lot of driveways. There's trees, there's different things that we're working around. So there's a bit more of a detailed site meeting required, but we need to get through this approval first.
Yeah, okay. So it's not going to shock them anyway.
No, not at all.
Okay, then my related question to that, I'm going to look at Director Hopkins and see, can we afford this?
Let's give you a microphone.
I think I'm on, yes. The increased cost, the original budget for Kent Avenue was at 250,000, so this is an increase of $75,000. Yes, we can afford it. Obviously, with any cost increase to a capital project, it becomes more of a cash management. So in future years, we want to make sure that we can make that up. So there'll be another RFD that's coming forward as well, and you'll ask that same question to me. This one isn't as significant as the next one. For the town to be able to afford $75,000 out of its reserves is less significant than a larger sum. But yes, we do have the funds and reserves to pay for that.
Molly, I'll just make a comment on, I'm really glad to see we're making the concrete ones because I really think the asphalt was a bad mistake whenever they made that decision 20 years ago. So hopefully we can continue with concrete.
Thank you. Mayor McKay.
Thank you. I have a couple of questions. Yeah, I had some similar ones to Councillor Palmer, but I think, can you tell, this was on the plan for how many years, Director Lake? Just a couple?
I was estimating 3.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think the cost difference from 3 years ago estimates to today are increasing as we said they would. So I think that it's important that we actually do get it done because I think it's going to be more expensive next year. And I think it hits all of our marks on accessibility. It is in really bad shape, and increases our AT network that we're working on. My next question would be, so there is a path, and Councillor Elliott and I have been talking about this for a number of years, a path that goes east to west from Stirling to Kent. So, and then you can go across basically to Chestnut and hit the trails that go down to our downtown. Is that path going to be a crosswalk, and can it be a raised crosswalk?
I don't believe what we have in the tender package is a raised crosswalk. You're referring to the crossing coming out of what would be the West End and then going across Kent as a raised crosswalk?
Yeah, there's a path that we plan to go from Stirling
on
and
Riga.
the name. Yeah, on Riga. That's right.
So I'm just we are also doing part of our active transportation network. I'm putting a tender out today actually for some additional traffic calming on Kent. So similar to what's happening on Stirling with these speed cushions, those can actually double as a crossing because of the width. And so let me just leave that with me. we hadn't thought about that in the scope, but we can look at that.
Wonderful. Thank you. That's it for me.
Councillor Palmer, do you have another question?
Yeah, I do. I guess I need a definition. What's a raised crosswalk?
So there's one that's on Sterling Avenue now. It's essentially a really wide speed bump. So I think the term that they're using in the TAC manual now is speed cushion. Yeah.
I don't see any more lights or hands up, so I would just ask maybe Councillor Palmer, would you be prepared to put this motion on the floor, please?
I would move that the committee of the whole forward the following motion to council for decision. That council approve increasing the budget for the Kent Avenue sidewalk replacement project to $325,000, allowing staff to award the contract based on the lowest tender received and proceeding with a reduction in planned sidewalk width from 1.8 meters to 1.5 meters post-award to achieve cost savings.
Thank you. Can I have a seconder?
I'll second that.
Councillor Butler, thank you. Are there any questions on the motion? On the vote, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that is carried unanimously. Thank you. All right. Devin, are you remaining up there for the wastewater treatment plant phase 2?
I am, and just checking in with Mayor McKay. Can you still see what's on the screen? There's a slide
Yes, I
about
can.
sewer wastewater system.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. So yeah, we're talking in a similar manner about our wastewater treatment plant in terms of a budget ask, but I just wanted to start with a bit of the bigger picture around our wastewater or sewer collection system, because I do think it's important that we kind of think about these bigger systems together as components that are really essential for running the town. We've been working on this upgrade to the wastewater treatment plant for almost my entire time here. And so just from a project delivery perspective, and I'm probably going to keep reminding people about how complex it is to deliver projects now. But this one has been in the planning stage for a number of years. Anyone that's been on council for any more than one term would have touched this, talked about this. But just what you're looking at on the screen is some material that I've been working on to break down our different essential systems. So our stormwater collection, our water system, and our wastewater system being the main three. And this is in another document that council will receive, but I just wanted to show it here today just for context. So in the top right, you can see our sewage treatment lagoons and our treatment plant. But that's just sort of the end of the line when we're talking about the bigger system. So you can see all of the other pieces there. So we have 52 kilometers of underground wastewater pipe, 4.4 kilometers of force main, these 6 lift stations that you see as the black dots on here. And I won't go on to read all of this. What also is stated here is just some other complementary projects that we're doing to support our wastewater system. So the first bullet point is talking about this phase 2 upgrade that includes a third lagoon and flood mitigation as sort of the big items here. We're also doing an assessment of our lift stations. So those lift stations are obviously essential to get wastewater out to our treatment facility. We're also looking at doing a bigger assessment of all of that collection pipe that you see that's underground, all of that thin red line that runs down up and down all the streets. And finally, as part of our wastewater treatment plant upgrade, this phase that we're doing, we are doing a partial upgrade to our SCADA system. So that's supervisory control and data acquisition. But that's an essential system that our operators use to know what's happening with our systems. And so there's a number of pieces that are happening that are linked to this. A lot of what we do from a wastewater and water perspective is responding to provincial legislation. And so we have regulatory compliance that we do have to meet, which is very important, maybe the most important part of all of this. So all of these upgrades, other projects we're doing on our bigger systems, in the background, there's always the regulatory compliance piece. So I'm just going to minimize this. And I'll just, I won't go through the report in great detail. I just want to do a few highlights here. So back when we first started the planning for this project, the budget was $6 million, just an even $6 million. And we went out and sought Investing in Canada infrastructure funding. So similar funding that we have for the AT project, where essentially what happens is you're paying for 1/3 of the project, and provincial government and the federal government are covering that 73 or 4%. Is that what it is? Yeah. So we have a commitment for 4.4 million on this project. We did up the budget to 6.4 million in the last iteration, and then as we went out to tender on this, it came back. From my perspective, quite successfully at 6.8 million. That's doesn't include HST. So when you include the HST on that, you get the first number you see in this table. So that's the 7.1 million. I'll just talk in round numbers. With the significant planning design that's happened. So we've been working exclusively on this project with CBCL. One of their process engineers has been dedicated to this project. I want to say 2.5 years of work has gone into this. It's really significant, really detailed, getting to where we are today. So a lot of that second line item, that design cost, has been covered. Just where I am really down a couple of people right now from a project management perspective. We have buffered that budget by about 75,000 just to cover us. The gentleman's name at CBCL's name is Dave. So just so Dave can give myself, my staff, more support. I have no doubt that there'll be technical items that Dave's going to have to come in on. There's some oversight during construction associated with that, but we have an engineering tech, senior manager of operations. They'll both be involved in this. And we also have 3 operators that operate our water and wastewater system that will be involved as well. The next big line item there is, and there's a section in the report about this. And I have to admit, I'm obviously not a process engineer. Dave from CBCL helped sort of explain that in the simplest terms that he could. Because it is a complex process. And our operators who are there every day would agree with this. It's high time that we do that. So we do have a contingency there. There's a bit more work to be done with CBCL and the full scope of that. So we have an allowance there of 400,000 as part of this. Once we do the upgrades, that will really help with the overall operation of our facility. And then the last item that you see there, just contributing to the overall cost, is a contingency. It's approximately 5% on the budget. This may or may not be accessed, but we certainly want to be able to finish this project. There may be things that come up unforeseen. I'm taking that recommendation from our design consultant, who is working actively, I think, on multiple wastewater plants across the Atlantic region right now. It's just a just in case, let's call it. So that may not contribute, and we may come in closer to 8 million on this project. But all of that totaled up for this project, and the reason that we're here is we're asking for approval from council on additional budget to approve this project, and it comes in at approximately 8.2 million. The report does have a few pieces of consideration. I've touched on them a bit here. The big one was the sludge removal. So we have some, I would say, pseudo-technical information on that. We have project management, and then just the realities of getting this built. Some of the things that I'll just be proactive here because I'm anticipating certain questions. The bulk of this work is moving earth, so bringing material into the site. And the speculation I got from from CBCL was that was really the difference in the pricing here was largely on who could access material and at what cost. And so you can see who came in at what cost, but that's the big item. There isn't a lot of indication that the tariff situation has had much of an impact on this. I think there's quite a bit maybe to be said about that if you're in the details of all the components, but just broadly, we didn't see a massive increase from that. Yeah, I think the last item just to cover off here is the last item of this table just talks about what percent of this project we are paying. So it nets out to about 46%. And it's an additional $2 million that the town is taking on. So I think Beth should probably maybe speak to something in advance if it's okay with the chair. Just, yeah.
The next question will be, can we afford it? Can the town afford it? Again, I'm going to caution council. This again becomes a cash management. We need to stay within the debt service ratio, which we certainly would be if we go forward with this project with the additional funding from the town. This would be something that we would propose to be debt serviced versus something that we use one of our capital reserves on. That still puts us well below the 15% debt service ratio that the province requires. However, the caution that I do want to put to council is going forward with additional details on capital projects coming into fruition in the future years. You'll need to prioritize what jobs you do select and what your budgets are for those going forward, where we have potentially library, town hall, fire services, recreational center, et cetera. So for this year, we do have the $1.8 million that we expected to expend on the new pumper that won't be expended. It's actually been pushed into the spring of 2026. However, that is a separate reserve, but it is still part of our capital portion of reserves. We can afford it. Again, it's just how we want to manage our cash and how we prioritize future capital projects.
Devin, do you have anything more to add before I open it up to questions, comments?
Just one, and maybe this will be a question, maybe it won't, but I'll just give you this information, whether you'd like it or not. So in the planning of this, just from everyone's, because some people would have been involved in discussions on this for a number of years. So we do come up with a design parameter around this type of project. And so this is approximately kind of a 9,500 person design parameter. And I figured that was coming as a question. But that's not really a perfect science. And so we do anticipate, and I did have a long conversation with the designer about, what future investment may we be looking at? And it won't be on the volumetric capacity. So we'll have lots of capacity with a third lagoon. But we have had sort of regulatory issues around the quality of wastewater that's coming out depending on the season. And so part of this is monitoring. So we have a project with Acadia University where we do monitor our wastewater, and we obviously work with Nova Scotia Environment on the testing that is required. But just over time, as the new system comes online, there'll be additional monitoring, and there may be a future investment to be determined. It probably, well, it definitely won't be in this council's term, but it would be a future investment. So just not to assume that this is a one and done type of project. And the other part of that, just with my planning hat on, is we're many, many years away from 9,500 people. If anyone was at the presentation with Turner Drake, I think there was a lot of talk about both the province and our community sort of doubling in population during the pandemic when we had a lot of people moving here. That certainly has slowed down or almost come to a halt. We do have obviously projects that are coming online. This is great capacity for those projects. But I think from my perspective, having worked here for 10 years, this is sort of a celebratory moment in some ways, because this project's taken a lot of effort to get over the line. And I know the deputy mayor said that at our planning committee the other day, and it's sort of been ringing for me, is just reflecting on some of the work that we've done and taking a moment to celebrate some of the planning and the work that the projects that are coming online is important. So I think that's it.
I'll open the floor to any questions or comments. Councillor Palmer.
It's just a mechanical question, really. When you remove the sludge, like, first of all, is there going to be an odor when you remove that?
I don't know if I want to give you a firm answer on that. There will be some. I don't know to what level. So let me get a more precise answer for you, and I'll send that back to you all.
Okay. And where does it go? Like, what do we do with it?
I'm not sure exactly the end state of it, but it's a
Yeah.
regulated process. Yeah. And so right now we're still scoping to what level we're going to be sludging. Again, part of this for me is the chicken and egg of getting this approval and then going forward with those details. Yeah.
I'll just add a little bit to that. So only certain landfills can take sludge from a sewer treatment plant. So the contractor that we work with will have to designate a specific drop area and take it to that particular facility. A lot of times in the Maritimes, sludge is going to a particular landfill in the Miramichi. So there's not a significant number of options, but that'll be something that we have to determine with the contractor and then have it go to a specific licensed facility.
And how many, sorry, what have you got, tons or yards? What's your number there, Devin?
Again, we're not sure. We want to do a bit of a survey there and figure out what the appropriate volume to remove would be. That's a piece of work that Dave's working on right now.
Just saying, if it's Miramichi, trucking to Miramichi would suck up $400,000 in a heartbeat. So I'd be, if it's Miramichi, wow.
Yeah, and I'm just giving one specific example, but it needs to go to a regulated facility. Yeah.
Councillor Elliott.
Thank you. This is probably a Picayune question, but I'm wondering, in creating another lagoon, is there any necessity to do archaeological survey?
I don't know the answer to that, so I'll get back to you. Yeah, I appreciate that question though. So let me go back to CBCL about that. I haven't been, as I think you can all appreciate, I haven't been in the details of this design for the last number of years, but I can ask the question. Yeah, thanks.
Mayor McKay.
Thank you. Thank you, Director Lake. This has been in the plans for about, again, another couple of years. Am I correct? 2 or 3 years?
I want to say that we started conversations on this 5 years ago and detailed work at least 3. Yeah.
And how long will this take to complete? I looked at the number of weeks and it looked really
18
long.
months.
18 months. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. I have a kind of the reverse question of Councillor Palmer. If we don't remove the sludge, will we have odor? Because I think our our neighbors have had issues in the last little bit on odors coming from their waste sites.
Well, I'll just be honest about my conversation with CBCL, which was I asked both of those questions and they're working on the answer. And I also was obviously hesitant to come to you with an additional $400,000 in the budget. And so I was really asking the question, how badly do we need to do this? I also went to our operators. They feel very strongly that this should be done. It's been a number of years since it was done. And so we will look at mitigating all of those concerns. But I don't have that information yet because Dave is working on a scope of work for that.
Yeah, because I was curious if you remove the sludge and it, you have smell for a couple of days and we tell people that, that's one thing. But if we don't remove the sludge and we have odor for a long period of time, that's probably less optimal. My last question is on funding. So this is a partnership with our provincial and federal government through the ISIP grant. If this goes through, would we consider going back to them to say there's a change in scope and asking for more funding?
So ISIP is fully subscribed, is my understanding. We can go back to them though and ask if that is a possibility. But my understanding was with the ISIP fund, it was already allocated to its full capacity. I don't know if Glenn, if you have more information on that.
I believe, the same answer that you just gave. I believe the ISIP program is fully subscribed, but we can make the extra effort to see if there's any other funding that either level of government could contribute.
Great, thank you so much.
Are there any more questions or comments?
Yeah,
Councillor Williams?
a comment. One of the reasons for removing at least some of the sludge from the bottom of the lagoon is that it allows some of the treated sewage to go down into the groundwater system, which is a good idea because it means less of the water then goes out to sea, which is one of the issues that Wolfville is having with the water quality going out through the surface water. So removing sludge is a good idea. It also gives you more room for the water to think about treating itself, which is in effect what's happening.
Thank you. I don't see anybody else's light on. I just have a quick question about when the time frame would be when this would be started if approved.
I hate to say this, but it's probably an ASAP, depending on the contractor. We'll work on the contract award coming out of this meeting.
Okay. Okay, with that being said, Councillor Williams, are you prepared to put the motion on the floor? Sorry, can you please turn your light on?
I move that the Committee of the Whole forward the following motion to Council for decision. That Council approve L&R Construction Limited be awarded Phase 2 of the wastewater treatment upgrades and the total project budget be increased to $8,211,193, including contingencies.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. Can I have a seconder? Councillor Butler, thank you very much. Are there any questions on that motion? Seeing none of the vote, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And that is carried unanimously. As the chair, I'm just going to call a quick break right now for anybody that needs more coffee or a little snack or something to keep them going. So 10-15 minutes. Does that work with you, Mayor McKay?
Sure.
Okay. Okay, we'll see you back in a bit. Thank you, and we are back. We will continue on to RFD 020-2025 Amendment to Traffic Authority Policy. Am I looking at you, CAO?
Thank you very much, Chair. The Traffic Authority policy hasn't been updated since 2016. And since that date, our Director of Public Works in its various iterations has been appointed to the role. With recent organizational changes to create the Department of Planning and Public Works, a small number of functions are being adjusted to reflect new structures and new responsibilities. This policy amendment facilitates one such adjustment. The Traffic Authority is empowered to regulate the control of traffic within your jurisdiction, including placement of signs, signals, markings, implementation of traffic control measures, which aligns well with the town's role of community compliance coordinator. While the appointment of staff is an administrative function, the Municipal Government Act and the Motor Vehicle Act delegates the appointment of the Traffic Authority to council through policy, which is why this adjustment is needed by council. This appointment is intended to be temporary as additional resources are added to the Department of Planning and Public Works. The town has in place an application process already, which is not changing, for traffic-related requests like event-based street closures to maintain continuity of service to the public despite the proposed change. So the systems that we've got in place, which primarily come in through Karen in Planning and Public Works, is still going to remain in place. So the application process that the community is used to for any kind of traffic-related matters coming in through Karen, that's still going to flow that way. The difference is those applications will then come to the Community Compliance Coordinator instead of the Director of Public Works. This is also consistent with common practice in other municipalities aligning the Traffic Authority with their version of bylaw enforcement or community compliance. So the proposed amendments to the policy are reflected in your package. And specifically, the proposed amendment is to make the Traffic Authority our Community Compliance Coordinator and make the Deputy Traffic Authority our Director of Planning and Public Works. So again, the policy framework we have as the primary and the deputy. So each of those positions would be changing as reflected in your package.
I will open it up if there are any questions. Councilor Potter.
It's really just a mechanical question of what would happen if a citizen wanted I don't know, let's say a children playing sign or somebody like that, who's going to make that decision that that's the appropriate thing to put there or not?
That would be the Traffic Authority. So whoever's
Right.
designated. To date, it's been the Director of Engineering. Going forward, if this were to be approved, it would be our Community Compliance Coordinator.
Okay, thank you.
I will add, though, that those kinds of determinations aren't made in a vacuum. So they would still, regardless of who the Traffic Authority is, they would be consulting with, subject matter experts within the town. So there would be engagement with our Department of Planning and Public Works before decisions like that would be made. But the ultimate authority on the decision relies with the Traffic Authority, which would be the Community Compliance Coordinator.
Are there any more questions of council before the motion on the floor? No, I don't see any. Councilor Elliott.
Okay. I would like to move that the Committee of the Whole forward the following motion to council for decision, that council approve amendments to the Traffic Authority Policy number 320-004 as presented.
And can I have a seconder?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Councilor Butler. Are there any questions on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? And that is carried unanimously. Thank you. Moving on, I'm looking at UCAO for the King's Transit budget.
Thank you very much, Chair. Each year, signatories to the intermunicipal service agreements related to King's Transit consider the annual budget recommendation by the KTA Board. Since the interim IMSA has been put in place, the interim IMSA Board has been acting on behalf of both KTA and Valley Waste Management, so this recommendation comes from that interim board. For the 2025-26, KTA's budget submission to council requires an operating contribution from Wolfville in the amount of $294,427. This is an increase of just over $35,000 from last year's budget, and a annual capital contribution of $12,000, which is the same as previous years as well. Overall, KTA is expecting a deficit of the year just ending March 31st, 2025. They've estimated to be approximately $200,000, but have also acknowledged that this is likely overstated. The primary drivers for that deficit are fare revenues that are forecasted to be lower than expected across the entire fiscal year. Bus maintenance is forecast to be overspent. It's been a very challenging year for bus repairs. It's been very, very challenging to actually keep a complete operational fleet on the road the entire time. And I think folks have actually seen that with sudden cancellations and route changes and things of that nature through operations. So it has been a very challenging year for KTA on the operations side. Similarly, route operation costs are forecast to be overspent, and this was due to the underestimation of staff benefits in the budget. Some of those trends are expected to continue. Bus repair costs continue to increase as the fleet ages and breakdowns become more common and difficult. The KTA is working on a fairly comprehensive capital program for bus replacement, but that is still a little bit of time away. So we are expecting some of those costs to continue to be high. And administrative costs are also anticipated to increase. KTA has recently hired a full-time GM. And there are other staffing increases that are required to operate that organization as well. So overall, we're looking at, I think it's about 13.5% increase compared to last year's budget. When you consider the actual operating costs of KTA, what this year's budget is really increasing only by a little over, it's almost 2% compared to last year's actual operating costs. But an increase nonetheless. We have already approved an operating budget this year, which includes an outlay for KTA. And what is being proposed here with KTA's final numbers is actually just slightly lower than we had budgeted anyway. But this authorization, the specific authorization, is requested from KTA by all of its members, and it's before you for your consideration.
Thank you, CA one. I'll open the floor up to any questions or comments. Councillor Elliott.
Back in the winter time, there were a number of questions that came my way around an app. And the mayor will know what this is, that alerted people to late buses. And it was horrible weather, and I'm just wanting to know whether that's been reinstated. They couldn't keep it going as it was and needed a new influx of technology. So that's my question.
Right. If Mayor McKay, as the board representative, I think you had some conversations about that. So I'd maybe refer to Mayor McKay.
Thank you. Yes, it was having issues determining whether it was going east or west. And the last I heard, it wasn't completely operational, but I'll double check with the GM, Meg Hodges, who's just newly on the job, and get back to you on that. But the last I heard, it wasn't quite up and running yet.
All right, I don't see any more questions. Is the motion on the floor? No, the motion is not on the floor. Would somebody like to put the motion on the floor? Jody, would you like, or Mayor McKay, would you like to put the motion on the floor? Sorry to put you on the spot. Oh, that's okay.
Got it.
Sorry. Ian will read, Council
it here.
Palmer will read it. I'm sorry to put you on the spot like that.
Yeah. Okay, it's true. Let me find it. I would move that Committee of the Whole forward the following motion to council for decision, that council approve the King's Transit Authority 2025-26 operating and capital budgets.
And can I
I'll
have a
second the motion.
Thank you, Mayor McKay. It's teamwork here at its finest. Are there any questions on that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye.
Right.
Opposed? And that is carried unanimously also. All right. I'm trying my best. Thank you. All right, so we have an information report on the leaf and yard waste. Update on that. I think people are anxious to hear about that. So would that be you, Devin?
Well, again, I'm just gonna open this first. This is one of my favorite things to do, is show different scales on maps, so bear with my excitement. This is the eastern end of town, and this isn't a up-to-date aerial photo, but I'm just giving you context where exactly this operation for the leaf and yard waste is going to be located. So this is where the new road is coming across. This is the north entrance of the new subdivision. And so to get a little closer to it, the yellow line is the road approximately. That green space is a park area that we've taken on with this development. So there's still a lot of space kind of in that area where you would have entered the old compost facility. Part of it was actually part of the old compost facility as you came in, where there was an old gate on an angle there that is no longer there. I'll just go to the report to show. So yeah, that's just context. This report is just meant to give a high level update. And I should just acknowledge all the people that are working on this project, because it's certainly not really me. I'm here representing all of the staff that I have. So Dawson Sheehy is our senior operations manager. He's been quarterbacking this for the most part, supported by our engineering technician, Chris Cheeseman. And we ran a compost facility for many years. So Dave Taylor, who's our parks lead, has a lot of advice, wisdom, I guess, on some of the realities of running this. So it's been a team effort. I don't know if you want me to step through each one of these, but the summary of this is there's a number of pieces that are moving forward. We hope to open it by May 28th, but we're kind of giving an optimistic and maybe a realistic date, so June 4th, just to be safe. But we're on track. So basically the operation is 2 20-foot bins with essentially a deck in between. I understand that, I haven't been to it, but there is a facility in Kingston similar to this, which is essentially acting as a transfer station, moving material from the town to Kings Valley Waste. So yeah, there will be obviously that trucking impact, people picking up bins, notification around bins. So we just want to be really clear with everyone how this is looking in this first iteration of getting this going. There was talk at one point, and I've received a number of emails around this, just around potential access that was 24/7. That was, I think, in the air. We are not recommending 24/7 access. So at this point, and we can take direction from council on this, we are looking at hours of 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. Wednesday to Saturday. When we had a compost facility before, it was 1 day a week. So this is this is an increased level of service, but it's also really just us opening it, monitoring it. We have a solid waste employee that is already on staff, so it's not a huge change from a staffing perspective. But I think there maybe is some discussion around level of service, just to put a pin in that, that I'd be curious about from council, whether that's enough or too much. Other pieces, just so with the fencing and the gate, we obviously need to have a rigid gate and a way to get in and out of this and a way to move bins. And so that's being worked on. Some of the fencing on the side of the facility for now, we are looking at doing temporarily because we just want to be really sure before we put permanent fencing in on how this is going to operate. And so this is maybe in the weeds a little bit, but we've had a need for have some taller construction fencing in-house. So this was a good opportunity for us to purchase some of that as well, which we can use for other needs when we're doing excavation and other projects. Signage is, I think, on a couple of iterations into it now, just working on details. We do want to control access, be very clear about where people can unload, and we will do a bit of traffic control. I think the reality is we might have to iterate as we observe how people use the facility. This is just really high level concept of what is being deployed. So people will enter from the north, at the northern part of the site, and there'll be some directional signage to have people in, have a generous loading area, and an exit, essentially, just so we can avoid, we had some issues last year when we had a restricted area by Home Hardware and people's varying skill levels of backing up a trailer. And so that can be avoided here. That was one of the main pieces of feedback that we got. Yeah, I think that's where we're at today. We can certainly share any things that come up. We're not anticipating not being able to deliver on this timeline. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Lake. Open it up to Councilor Butler.
I just had a question about the speed bumps on Maple Avenue. Were those temporary or are they permanent? And are they there? If they're not, are they being put back? What was the speed bump situation on Maple?
So those are temporary sort of bolt down speed bumps that we have. We have those to deploy. So the approach there, going back a couple of years, was we were trying those by the visitor center and on Maple. What we're looking to do is actually put more of those speed cushions in as part of our asphalt tender this year, which would include the visitor center area. These temporary speed bumps are really abrupt for an actual roadway. In a parking lot, like, I think they're successful in the Railtown parking lot. I think that's a good use of those. But people are going very slow at that point, and I've gotten a lot of feedback on this. So we're working on sort of finalizing what the scope and scale of the asphalt and concrete tenders are right now. And so I'm happy to communicate that to council, making sure you understand what's coming later in the season. But part of it is speed cushions on Maple. Yeah.
Councilor Williams.
Thank you. Point of clarification. The two bins side by side, but there's going to be some sort of decking between them. And that decking presumably is at what height relative to the top of the bin?
I don't know exactly, but I can get you that information.
Two things come to mind. It means that there has to be double handling. If someone comes in with a trailer, then they have to take the material, walk up some steps and pop it in the bin. They can't just unload it straight from the trailer. I'm not saying that's a good or a bad thing.
Well, we did talk this out. So potentially someone could back their trailer up to the front of the bin, stand on their trailer and sort of hand bomb it in, which is in some ways the equivalent of taking it out, walking up on a deck and putting it in. So we're trying to be flexible on how people can put the stuff in. The other thing that, going back to the beginning of this, we did have some discussion on whether we would leave the bin open. Like people would walk in and out of the bin, dragging stuff in. That I think was determined, this was when Alex was here, but that was determined to be a safety issue. And so with the door closing on someone or someone going inside of the bin is probably not a good idea.
I mean, in the past, this has been a relatively rural piece of land, but of course now there's a subdivision going on just behind all of this, so there's going to be many more children. And you know what children do. They're going to say, oh, what's it like in there? And either fall in or get.
Where's your each?
So it's important that there is somebody close by to monitor that when the gates are open.
Yeah, and just to be clear, we won't have a staff person there while it's open. We will be on standby, essentially. We have talked about cameras, the initial launch, because of some of the issues and feedback we received about our camera pilot. I'm not sure that's an effective tool.
If I can add, I think the concern that you're maybe referring to, Councillor, is when the subdivision off of Maple is actually built out and we're seeing families and neighborhoods and whatnot come to fruition. That won't be the case this year.
Oh, sure.
So this site really is Director Lake has articulated. We're going to set something up as an initial offering and then really watch how it's used in the community, the comings and goings and whatnot. But as it exists right now, we're not anticipating, easy unintended access by children. Anybody that's wanting to go to the site would have to make an effort to go to the site. Yeah.
And maybe I should say, I mean, my opinion would be this probably isn't the 20-year solution for this. So I think we need to see how it goes, how people respond to this level of service. And we can have more discussion about this. I think there may be better options that emerge as we move forward.
Councillor Palmer.
Yeah, okay, thank you, Deputy Mayor. The question I'd have, Director Lake, is I'll step in as our unofficial historian here in place of Councillor Elliott. But I think historically up there, Mr. Nolan would pull in, he would have his clipboard and he'd say, and where are you from in your name? And then you dump it in there and you ripped it out of the bags. You kept the bags separate from the leaves or whatever you had. And I would be, maybe I'm a negative Nelly, but I'll tell you, if you have an unsupervised place there, you're gonna have toilets, TVs, air conditioners, and bags of and bagged leaves thrown in those bins. And then and I think, maybe I'm wrong on this, but if you take leaves to Valley Waste, they don't charge you for the dumping fee. But as soon as you have, I'll use the word garbage, I know that you're not supposed to use that, but garbage, then they charge you for that. Am I correct in saying that?
Yeah, and I think you're speaking to a bigger issue that we need to discuss, and I don't know how to discuss it without first getting the site operational. I think we need to see what level of misuse we have. And because we did talk about this internally, do we create the hours for someone to be there? When are those hours? Are we creating another position or are we taking an existing resource and putting them there? So depending how this plays out, there is a resourcing discussion, which is a budget discussion around this. Right now we have existing folks. And I mean, going back to the first discussions around 24/7 access, I think that was somewhat a response to our resource constraints. So I don't disagree with you. I think that we may have misuse, but we're going to monitor it closely initially and then see What would we have to come back to you?
Yeah. So, and what were the hours when it was, 2 years ago, 3 years ago? What were the hours?
I believe it was just Saturdays.
Yeah, and I think it was just Saturdays.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was, I think it was just Saturdays and it was basically, I don't know. I think it was 12 to 4 and I think it was only like maybe June to maybe October. So it wasn't all year, it certainly wasn't all year, that's for sure. And my living on Maple Avenue, I would recommend that we don't open it any more than Saturday. That would be, or it seems to me that's lots, but that's an opinion.
Mayor McKay?
Thank you. First, I'd like to thank staff for coming back with this because I, like Director Lake, had a lot of feedback on the 24/7 access. So this is definitely much better. I have one question. Are there, in the bin, are there safety precautions where if you fell in, because that would be something I would do, to be honest, because I feel like I'm kind of klutzy like that. I would chuck them over and think I'm stronger than I am and put too much in my hand, throw it over. But are there stairs to come out of them, like I would call them like pool stairs, you know what I mean? That come down and go back up and you climb them out? Or is that a silly question?
I'm not 100% sure, but I don't believe these bins have, you're talking about like a ladder to climb back out of the bin, basically?
Yeah.
I want to say
Don't know.
probably.
Okay.
No.
Not. Okay. Just curious. I've never been inside one. Hope to never be, actually. So I don't know. But yeah, this level of service, I understand that, there may be some misuse because people have a tendency to do that. But I think we have to have faith in the people that are going to use it, that want to use it, that they're going to use it properly, and then assess it afterwards. No different than we did with every other pilot that we do. 8 to 3 Wednesday to Saturday seems a reasonable start. And then if we need to reassess it in 1 month's time, we reassess it. But I think it gives people an opportunity to clean up their yards and all that kind of stuff. That is what they're asking for. So I'm happy with it the way it is, but we'll be interested to see what happens. Thanks.
Councillor Van Niekerk?
Thank you. I just wanted to say that, I guess regarding the hours, just to show some support for the additional day that you've added. We are big users of the compost previously, and I felt that our entire family's summer holidays and schedule for the weekends revolved around the operation of the compost site, because we would have to schedule going to the beach with the kids around somebody, my husband or I, taking the compost to the drop-off site. So it's great to have a weekday option where we don't have to be home on a Saturday afternoon to drop off the compost. I'm sure I'm not the only one in that position. But yeah, and I just think that it's a great starting point. I think it makes sense to have some limitation around the drop-off times versus the 24 hours. And because it does give a sense of like this is being controlled and monitored versus just, hey, it's a free for all. So I think that makes sense. And yeah, I'm excited to have it back and look forward to seeing some of the results. That's all. Thank you.
Go ahead, Director Lake.
I just want to get a point of clarity. Just there is resourcing constraints, obviously, with a lot of stuff that we do. So we were open to multiple days a week. It sounds like what council's comfortable with is Wednesdays and Saturdays for those hours to start, and then we could ramp it up from there. I did have in the report that there was kind of an option here of having I believe I put Wednesday through Saturday. And so but I'll take direction on that. I think we're happy to try that. I think we can also try 2 days, but I'd love to get a sense from the group what the comfort level is as a starting point. And maybe I can commit to coming back like 3 or 4 weeks after we start, and we could have another discussion, just because I suspect I may have challenges.
So I can ask council what consensus is. Do you prefer, would you like me to, okay, would you prefer the Wednesday to Saturday or the Wednesday and Saturday? So I'll go around the table. Councillor Williams. You want to put your microphone?
I'm a bit conflicted here because I've never used the site and I don't actually know why you should need one.
So the lesser? Okay, Councillor Van Niekerk.
I think definitely at a minimum 1 weekday and a weekend option. So at least the Wednesday and Saturday, I would be happy with.
Yeah. Councillor Butler.
I would be fine with the 2 days, the Wednesday and Saturday, or Thursday, Friday, Saturday. I think even having two days right back to back, it's easier to communicate that than to say every Wednesday at this and every Saturday at this. Folks might get confused and think it is open the Thursday and Friday as well. So I'm good with that. It certainly doesn't need any more time than what's been allotted.
Councillor Promoter.
That's a good point, Councillor Butler, but maybe back-to-back days. One thing I will point out, you're talking about opening it at 8 o'clock in the morning. I'd just bring to council's attention that there are a fair number of, I think they're high school students that walk down Maple Avenue catching that bus. So maybe it's 9 o'clock instead of 8 o'clock, maybe.
Good point.
Yeah, that makes sense. You don't want to have a conflict with little humans and big machines. I think 2 days would be sufficient, not suggesting which ones other than Saturday, but sounds like lots to me.
Mayor McKay.
Yeah, I read it as Wednesday through Saturday in our package, so that was sort of my thought process. I agree. I think it needs to be consecutive days. I would be probably happy with a Thursday, Friday, Saturday if we were looking at shortening the time, but I think you need to have this consecutive days, because if you have 2 days off for someone who works and did the work so that you could get it done, I think that's important. I agree. I don't think it should be, I thought 8 a.m. was a little early, but I'm not sure why 3 p.m. is the stop time. I would almost rather go the opposite way, like a 9 to 4 for those that are working who may take a load after work or something like that. But I would be happy with the consecutive days of a Thursday, Friday, Saturday if we're looking at constraining the time.
Yeah, so speaking of consensus that we talked about yesterday, I'm not sure I have like a total consensus on that. Like, do we want to just leave it maybe like Wednesday to and change the hours, or do you want to go from Thursday to Saturday? I'm fine with the 2 days. I do understand that consecutive days make more sense. I'm in favor of shortening it, but I'm not feeling like I have a consensus on the Wednesday, Saturday, or Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Are you?
I think we were prepared to open this thing Wednesday to Saturday. I think if I could take a day away of commitment from staff, they would be happy with that. So if we started with Thursday, Friday, Saturday, let me talk about the realities of hours.
Okay.
I think that's an important point around busing and school and kids. And so I don't see a huge issue with bumping that back a bit. And then maybe that corresponds with, I think Mayor McKay's comment on some later hours makes a lot of sense for working folks and getting stuff there. So I can come back to you with final. I just want to talk. I just want to talk to the crew a bit.
Okay, so Thursday to Saturday, it sounds, and you're going to look at the hours. Is that good with everybody? Okay, here we go. Thank you. All right, that would be it. Yes. And the final one is a fun one, looking at Barb again. Soups.
Yard waste. I mean, that's
Yard waste was fun too. This is the soups and sides. You can smile now.
It's not a competition amongst staff, I assure you. Oh, yes, of course.
Not to conflate the recreation folks, but we all have lots of fun.
Yes.
That's
Yeah.
correct. And through the chair to council, and in the spirit of speaking of pilots, this is a pilot that went as planned. In fact, better than planned from the feedback that we've had. So I think sometimes from a staff perspective, we rush through and on to the next thing and maybe are not taking our time with reporting back to council as the decision makers and through council to community as the funders of these very important programs in our community. So just a quick reminder that Soups and Sides was visioned as an inclusion project, a way to bring people together, to build relationships, and to try something a reimagining of a whole bunch of things that had worked well previously, like the former, I think it was the Wednesday night suppers at the market and some other pilots that some students from Acadia had brought forward. So with council's support and belief that this was a good thing to try, we did try. It was, from my perspective, it was incredibly successful, incredibly well received. And so what you have in front of you today is just a little bit of accountability, a little bit of a wrap up and a report back to you folks. One of the things that I really wanted to do was find a mechanism to give you some of this direct guest feedback, which I can tell you when we collected that and I went home and read it, I was really, really proud to have been a part of that project. So just wanted to extend my gratitude once again to council and the community for supporting this, and also for supporting it for next year as well, even before we had wrapped up this year. And I'm happy to take any questions at this time.
Councillor Elliott.
Not a question, but a shout out. Because one of the successes of this whole project, which you have engineered, is a charitable donation from the Royal Bank. And the Royal Bank has also donated to the community oven. And those two things make a lot happen. So I just wanted to thank them as well as thank you.
Councillor Palmer.
Yeah, it's the same thing. I'll be the first to admit that when we talked about this last year at budget, whenever it was, I was a little skeptic. To say the least, of whether or not this was something that we should even be entertaining, but boy, you've bought me over on that one. And I do. But I do want to give a shout out to Barb and to Asia and her people and to all the volunteers. I mean, it's been a huge success. One thing I would like to see is I would like to see Asia's soups on cards when we go down there so that we can make them, especially that African bean soup, which was spectacular. So anyway.
Through the chair to the councillor, I appreciate that suggestion. Not the first time we've heard it. There is a desire to for next year to be able to put together some of Asia Beaton's recipes along with especially the ingredient lists, which will be a partnership that we're looking at doing with the market because so many of the ingredients come from our local farm suppliers. So thank you for that. We are working on it.
Any more questions? Comments? Nope. I think we all are really happy with that program and thank you to staff and all our volunteers. Thank you so much. All right, that is all of our staff reports. I'll pass it over to our CEO for his report.
Thank you very much, Chair. Just going to touch on a couple of things from the CAO report. Everything that I'm going to speak to is written in your package, but excuse me, just to highlight a couple of things. Wolfville Blooms has been seeing a lot of web traffic related to the recent launch of our review and engagement on off-leash dogs at Reservoir Park. So thank you to all of those who are feeding into that process. We're getting a lot of really, really good content. That window for consultation continues until, Barb, not to put you in the spot, another couple of weeks? 23rd of May. So if there are folks who have not expressed their thoughts yet, you've still got a little bit of time to do that. But what we've been seeing so far has been fantastic. So thank you to everybody involved. The town of Wolfville has a civic addressing bylaw in place to ensure that emergency services can find you when you are most in need. A quick public information campaign encouraging all residents to take a quick moment to check their civic number signage has been really successful, with many residents replacing and updating signage. And of course, you can find more information again on that on Wolfville Blooms as well. Not only the blooming and blossoming isn't the only sign of spring out there right now. The VIC opened on May 1st for another year. This year under the management of the Wolfville Business Development Corporation. And the first weekend of Magic Wine Bus trips took off, I think, last weekend. So we're looking forward to another really successful year at the VIC this year as well. Summer camp registration also launched week before last, and I believe it is now fully subscribed. And we've also hired staff for that programming. So I know there's lots of young leaders and young children looking forward to another fantastic, fun summer in Wolfville. Work continues on our rec hub. I've been over there a few times over the last number of days. Every time I've been over there, there's been a little bit more added. So if you haven't seen it yet, I'd encourage you to just take a swing by the East End and go through that parking lot and see the updated work on our rec hub. I believe we're aiming for an early June opening of that facility, and so work is still in progress there, but is going reasonably smooth. Turning over to emergency services, in March, we had 17 calls for service for the Wolfville Fire Department. Just to give you a sense of scope for the volunteers who make up the Wolfville Fire Department, in addition to calls and training, March, there were 462 hours of training and 42 meeting hours of that's the total number for our membership over at the Wolfville Fire Department. So again, going to the dedication of those volunteers who make up our fire department. Kind of what I thought was a neat thing that the Wolfville Fire Department is doing is last year, I believe it was, they purchased a virtual reality fire extinguisher training module, and that was deployed with health professionals at EKM I believe it was in the month of March, which was very, very well received. So that's another service offering that the Wolfville Fire Department is providing to the community. Park staff returned on April 14th, and we have 2 summer students arriving, one yesterday and one next week. And as you can see, if you take a look around town, all of the parks and public spaces, you always know when the park staff is back, because all of a sudden, all of the seasonal stuff that gets either built up or wilted down through the winter months, all of a sudden starts to breathe new life. And if you take a look at many of our parks and public spaces, that's definitely happening right now. In addition to that, the nets are up at both the tennis court and pickleball court as well. Moving on to some more technical updates, the storm system assessment that council approved in its operations plan is underway with support from CBCL. Staff have just started the survey portion and have already collected survey data for 345 catch basins so far throughout the town. Just to give you a sense of the level of effort of that. So that kind of assessment, that's taken 3 full days of field work to survey and another couple of days of then coming back into this to the office and uploading that information into our GIS systems. Related, to show you how we're trying to improve some of the workflows, public works operators have begun onboarding with iPad tablets and mobile forms to support paperless field workflows. So when our folks are out in the field, rather than taking traditional notes or whatnot in a notebook, we've deployed iPads with everybody And so that when they're doing any kind of information flow that needs to come back, it can be occurring live in the field. And I just really want to give a shout out to Trevor Robar, our GIS person, who's really kind of taken the bull by the horns and is iterating our systems as it goes. So he's actually creating the programming, taking it out, training our folks, going with them, seeing how it works, and then making additional changes to those systems as they've live tested them in the field. So it's a bit of an onerous task at this stage, but it'll pay off significantly in the long run. And so kudos to Trevor for his ingenuity, and kudos to our staff for being open to trying something that has been a little bit unfamiliar, but is paying off big time as we move forward. On finance side of things, finance is spending a lot of their time in May focusing on finalizing the 2024-25 financial records, preparing our account reconciliations, working papers, and preparing draft financial statements. So as you're all aware, we're also down a fairly central person in our finance department. So kudos to Beth and her team, who have pulled together really, really well and are moving everything on earth to try to keep up with all of the financial obligations that we have through this season. And that's everything. Like I said, the CAO report is in your package. That's everything that I'll highlight for you. But if there's any questions, happy to try to address them.
Thank you, CEO. That was a very fulsome report. It's a lot of work, so thank you for updating everybody and keeping us well informed. Councillor Palmer, you have a question?
Yeah, I do. I get two actually, and I'll start with maybe the one that's easiest to answer. The rec hub, what kind of like basically, well, okay, what happens there? Let's go with that. Let's start with what happens there and when.
I'll let Nick address
Yeah.
that. If you want to come up to the mic up here, Nick, that'd be.
So essentially it's a free rental service. We've got a fleet of bikes. Some of them are mountain bikes, some of them are smaller, like younger person bikes. Some of them are e-bikes for people to come and try at their leisure. And you know, it also, the space that we're creating there is sort of something that we expect people to kind of come and enjoy just on its own, to be like a placemaking spot for people to gather. And I think we'll also have some of the scooters will be positioned there too. So it's just sort of a hub for people to kind of come and try out some different kinds of active transportation. Oh, hours? Off the top of my head, I believe it is Tuesdays and Thursdays. I might be wrong here. I don't want to say the wrong thing. It's two weekdays and then Saturdays and Sundays. And it'll be, I think the weekdays are something like 9 to 5 and the weekends are 12 to 6, I believe. Yeah.
Right. Okay, great. I had a lot of questions on what actually happens there. So that's good clarification.
And as we get closer to the date of launch, there'll be some communications as well as to what this is and introducing it to the community.
Okay, and since Nick hit on it, this is where my next question was. Everybody that skateboards,
scooters.
Sorry, scooters. Sorry, not skateboards. God help me, skateboards. Scooters. The helmet issue, is that? Where are we with that? And is that going to happen, or
so that's going to go to Barb for follow-up.
Thank you for that question through the chair to the counselor. So folks using the scooters are required to wear a helmet. At this point in time, folks renting those scooters will need to provide their own helmet. The operator is waiting on a attachment piece that will be on the e-scooters. I don't know what the attachment piece is called, but imagine a hook or some kind of a mechanism, and helmets will actually be attached to the e-scooters. That piece is tied up in shipping. So the scooters have currently been deployed. without the attached helmets. It is the responsibility of the rider to provide a helmet. If they are not riding with a helmet, then that would be a law enforcement issue.
I'm glad to see them back. I think they're a nice little addition to our town, but it always comes up whenever I talk to anybody about them, but anyway, I wish them luck. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any more questions to our CEO, comments? No?
I just want to add on the e-scooters, thank you to Mayor McKay and Barb and Devin for your engagement with the provider of those scooters. Some feedback was provided from lessons learned last year, and I think we can fairly say that the provider has heeded that feedback and is, while we're early in the season, what we're seeing in terms of the deployment of the e-scooters in town so far is much different than we saw last year. I walk around town quite consistently, and I see them in an orderly state most places that I go. So just kudos to our staff, but also for the young gentleman who's providing these e-scooters for his awareness and his uptake on the suggestions that we've provided.
Thank you, Mayor McKay and staff. And I think that might have been a good takeaway that we had from our town and gown last year, Mayor McKay. So thank you for that. I just want to do one quick shout out to planning, and because I think we also don't, talk about all our successes so much, but I want to do a shout out to our planning departments, specifically to Mark Fredericks for a very successful Earth Day. People were, it was so nice to see so many families out there, including our CEO and his children, planting so many trees. And as you walk by in years to come, you'll know, I know what number I was. I walk by it quite frequently and it's doing okay. I do know it was a yellow birch. Somebody did ask me that. So no, it was yellow birch, but as many people that asked about David, they also asked about our senior planner, Mark Fredericks, and what a wonderful job he did. So I just wanted to do a shout out to him. Thank you. Right. Moving on to committee reports. Audit. Councillor Palmer, is there anything to add?
As submitted.
Okay, any questions? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on. Planning Advisory Committee, Mayor McKay, anything to add?
Nope.
Nope.
That's it.
If there's any questions? Seeing none, we'll move on to RCMP, Councillor Butler.
As submitted.
As submitted, any questions? Move on, thank you. Move on to external reports. Janet Ness is not here, but we received the Annapolis Valley Regional Library report. Don't think there's any questions. I guess our CEO could answer them, but is there any questions associated? No? Okay.
Can I take a comment?
Oh, sorry, Councillor Palmer, go ahead.
I'd just like to reach out to Ms. Ness about that comment or about her report. That's quite a very detailed report. I appreciate her time and effort into that.
Thank you so much. Then we're moving on to IMSA for Valley Waste and King's Transit. Mayor McKay, is there anything to add?
As submitted.
As submitted. Any questions? Councillor Van Niekerk has a question.
I just had a question about regarding Valley Waste and the spring cleanup. And I believe this came up last year, but why is the spring cleanup week for Wolfville the week before the students move out? Because they do Kentville's after. And if they reverse them, like our town looks like a dump for a period of time. And then who is picking up all that garbage? Is Valley Waste picking it up or are we picking it up?
Mayor McKay, would you like to answer, our CEO, either or?
Yeah, it's more complex. We've asked this for more than I think every year I've been here, which is now 9, and it's more complex than just flipping dates. So for Valley Waste from an operational standpoint, so it's never been changed. By the sounds of it, likely won't be because we're only one of many that they service. And I think the CAO has an update on maybe a pickup coming up this week for the extra.
Yeah, I think so. So unfortunately, in the course of moving out, a number of individuals thought it appropriate to drop material on their front lawn. And to respond to that, town crews have been picking up things I believe throughout this week. Somebody can nod or turn or say no if I'm mistaken, but I believe it's been occurring throughout this week. Anything that's left beyond this week, I believe, though, if folks come aware of it, they can report it to compliance and we'll deal with it as a compliance issue. On the go forward, this has not been publicly announced. It's not private information, but it's not been publicly communicated. This will occur later on this year. The collection contract for Valley Waste is changing in 2026, and Valley Waste will move away from biannual bulky waste collection and begin bi-weekly bulky waste collection of 2 items. So a large part of our issue ought to be addressed by that more frequent bulky waste collection. It'll likely introduce new issues, but it is an expansion in the service level. So we'll have to work with our landlords and our partners at Acadia to see what new challenges may arise from this change in service level for bulky waste collection.
Councillor Elliott?
Yeah, I just wanted to add to that. One of our elderly neighbors is moving into apartment housing from her home. And you wouldn't have believed the amount of stuff that came out of that house and went on the front lawn. And 3 days later, I would say there was maybe 4 things left. Like the pickup level is phenomenal. Recycling right on the roadside. It's amazing.
And that's a really important detail to highlight. I hadn't, but a significant amount of what you've seen be removed from the roadside is actually not formal waste collection. It's pickers who are taking and reusing. So that's all of that is diversion from landfill. So that is actually quite a good thing to see, and it makes it a lot easier for our crew who has to then come in behind to get yet again to remove what's left.
Thank you. We'll move on. Kings Point.
Okay. I'm just thinking maybe Deputy Mayor and I, maybe CIO can bring this back to town and gown as well. Remember when we used to have the dump and run? That at Acadia, we used to take it down to the arena and people would just take all of the stuff and reuse it. And it was certainly easier to get rid of things too, because it was a central place, but we haven't done that in, I don't know, maybe it was COVID, it stopped and we've never got it back.
Good point. Yep. All right, move on to Kings Point to Point now. Councillor Elliott, is there anything to add?
Report as submitted. I just found it really interesting that Kings Transit is having trouble hiring drivers, and so is Kings Point to Point. So anybody out there who's looking for a job?
I am sorry. Thank you. My mic was not on. So REMO, Kings Regional Emergency Management Advisory Committee, REMAC, as submitted by Dan Stovall. Any questions? No? Okay. We'll move on to the Valley Community Fiber Network. Councillor Palmer, anything to add?
No, as submitted.
Thank you. Any questions? Okay, thank you. And the Wolfville Business Development Corporation, Councillor Palmer, anything to add?
No, nothing to add. I just will point out this, as the CEO said, the VIC is being ran by the WBDC. So if you're looking for anybody at WBDC, Jeremy should be there fairly regularly if you're looking for Jeremy. Down at the VIC.
Thank you. Any questions? Nope. Okay, thank you. Scrapers. Jeepers, sorry. Thank you for keeping on top of me. We're moving on to public input. I just want to remind all speakers that the town conducts its business with the 7 sacred teachings in mind: truth, honesty, love, courage, respect, wisdom, and humility. Members of the public participating in public input sessions will conduct themselves in a manner that is respectful to the public, council, and staff. Should this not occur, the chair will advise them to end their questions and or comments immediately. You have up to 5 minutes to make your comments and provide feedback. Comments are directed to the chair. If appropriate, responses to input and our questions will be responded to in a future CEO report. Any questions that are related to personnel, current or political litigation issues or planning issues for which a public hearing has already occurred, but no decision has been made by council will not be answered. With that. So I do see somebody coming up here. If you could just state your name and your address, please.
Hi, my name is Jeremy Banks. My address is 5 Locust Avenue. Thank you for having me today. I wanted to just comment on the review of the off-leash rules at Reservoir Park. It spurred quite a conversation in my household and with people that are important to me. Because dogs at Reservoir Park have been controversial for longer than I've been in Wolfville. And while I have been in Wolfville, I haven't seen record of many instances of enforcing the bylaw at Reservoir Park, which is concerning to me because Reservoir Park is a place where children play in a sandy beach that is perfect for dogs to use as they see fit, where owners are responsible for having dogs that can be controlled by voice, yet often don't. For myself, I run through that park quite frequently. There's some dog owners that I have come to know and appreciate. There's many dog owners that don't. And the common refrain is, he's friendly, don't worry. And that's great, except his friendliness is claws in me. His friendliness is nipping at my heels and sometimes biting. But it's just friendliness. And I've lived here long enough to see people complain about these rules and to see them not enforced. I've lived here long enough to see parents with children stop complaining about these instances because they won't be enforced. And it concerns me more and more because these laws are actually really fine the way they're written if you spend time enforcing them. But it's expensive and timely to enforce them, as you can talk about building inspectors and how much we spend on them to enforce building violence. It's difficult to do that. It's also neglectful to ignore our responsibility to the common good and to the public safety of the people who participate and enjoy Reservoir Park. Typically, in areas with dog parks, those parks are for dogs and they often have fences. We have space for that. But the weirdest and scariest thing that I learned investigating this in the conversations in our household is that pepper-based dog repellent is permitted. If I fear for my safety at Reservoir Park, it's the weirdest thing in the world. I'm allowed to bring a pepper-based dog repellent and spray it. I don't want to do that. But maybe if we're not going to enforce those laws and we're not going to change those laws, maybe that awareness campaign is actually really, really important to know that as an individual, you are and should be prepared to protect yourself and your children at a place where you should be having fun. Now, I don't want us to go that direction. I think having a dog park dedicated for dogs separate from opportunities where these conflicts can arise is maybe a much better opportunity, a much more desirable outcome. But in lieu of that, I really do want to encourage people to know their rights and the rules. So maybe an awareness campaign about the off-leash dog park rules and what people can do to protect themselves in those instances would be really beneficial, both to dog owners and to people who do not own dogs, who currently are not seeing their concerns addressed and have not seen their concerns regularly addressed in many years. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeremy. I'm assuming there's nobody online. No, there is nobody online. That concludes our public input portion. Can I have a motion to adjourn to in camera under section 22(2) of the Municipal Governments Act? Council Palmer?
I would move that the committee of the whole moved adjourn to an in-camera meeting under section 22(2)A and E of the Municipal Government Act, acquisition of sale, lease and security of municipal property and contract negotiations.
Thank you. Can I have a seconder, please? Thank you, Councillor Butler.